Chapter 1572. The almost endless stabbing pain in his mind made the Dharma Supreme feel like he was better off dead. However, his brain was still operating clearly, pondering and considering, making a clear choice to give up. Only with a strong body can I be invincible in the world. Only with invincible in the world can I be the best in the world. Only after I am the best in the world can I think about the problem of immortality. Only after everything is perfect can I take care of my family and my brothers. If oneself is perfect, too much consideration is nothing more than an act of worrying oneself over nothing. It seems like family and brothers are the most unnecessary. No, I am supreme and invincible. What is my ultimate goal? What is it for? Therefore, family and brothers cannot be abandoned. The Dharma Supreme was sweating profusely, still struggling and resisting. The heavenly demon strange being observed calmly. He had completely lost the confidence to win and was just purely operating the demonic array. Were the people in this world crazy? The ant-like fledgling devil just now was already very unexpected. This one with a higher cultivation level in front of him, did he not feel pain? Even in the heaven palace, there were not many people who could resist this level of pain. What kind of world was this? The only thing that supported the heavenly demon strange being was that the Dharma Supreme was still making a choice, still continuing this game. Remove I am supreme. The Dharma Supreme's eyes were as cold as snow as he finally made a decision. The heavenly demon strange being breathed a sigh of relief. He was really terrified now and did not dare to talk nonsense. He hurried on with the fifth item, bitterness rising in his heart. Could it be that the people in this world and the heaven palace are actually different species, just looking similar? He should have been the first to give up his brothers. In this case, am I going to face failure again? Then I get rid of immortality. Remove invincibility. Now there were only 3 items left. A strong body, family and brothers. The Dharma Supreme's steady breathing finally became heavy. He had chosen here, but he was almost at his limit. He hesitated even longer. Finally, he said hoarsely, remove a strong body. I only keep my family and brothers. I request to keep these 2 items. No more choices. No. I have to make another choice. The heavenly fiend eccentric didn't relax at all. He only felt more and more dejected and disappointed. At this moment, he just wanted to end this embarrassing game as soon as possible. This game that he had been leading and dominating had actually escaped his control again and again. Get rid of the parent clan. The Dharma Supreme closed his eyes. Ever since he had returned to this world, it could be said that he had never cared about his family and loved ones. He had always thought that they were just decorations for his successful life. But when he gave up at this moment, he realized that he had actually put these things at the end of his choice. They were actually more important than his body, strength, and perfection. In the end, when he had to give up, he still felt like his heart was being cut by a knife. His heart seemed to shatter in an instant. However, he never chose to abandon his sworn brother. I've already betrayed you once. I have already abandoned all of you once. This time, no matter what, I will never abandon all of you. Never. Before the Dharma Supreme's eyes, the faces of these brothers seemed to appear one by one. Even though tens of thousands of years had passed, each and every one of them. But they were still so fresh in his memory. I'm sorry. The Dharma Supreme lowered his head sadly. I'm sorry. Brothers, I let all of you down back then. It's my fault. But this time, I've made a new choice. I've finally left all of you at the end, to let all of you accompany me forever. If things could be redone, we would definitely be able to. Live and die together, we would definitely be able to. Live and die together. The Dharma Supreme's eyes were brimming with tears. It's a pity that choices can be made. But life can't be redone. Finally, there's still one last choice. The voice of the heavenly demon strange being rang coldly, with a strong murderous intent. If the Dharma Supreme still made the same choice as Yizue in the last choice, then the heavenly demon strange being would choose to kill the Dharma Supreme without hesitation. Even if it was beyond his power, he would still go all out, even if it meant perishing together with the Dharma Supreme in the end. Because there was basically no hope for him anymore. Since that was the case, he might as well let this guy die with him. Last choice? What else is there to choose? The Dharma Supreme, who had always been calm and collected, suddenly flew into a rage. I'm only left with my sworn brother. If I abandon him again, I'll really have nothing left. There's only one option. How do I make a choice? Are you messing with me? No. How can you have nothing left? Don't you still have your life? The heavenly demon's strange being's cold voice seemed to be devoid of any emotion. He said slowly and cruelly, "Last choice, do you want your life? Or do you want your brother's lives? Last choice, you have to make a choice." The Dharma Supreme's vision turned black. Suddenly, he let out a loud roar and spat out a mouthful of blood. The earlier choices had always been easy for him. Even if he had hesitated, once he made a choice, he was still resolute. However, when it came to the last option, the Dharma Supreme suddenly had a feeling of rebirth of life and turning back time. It was as if he had returned to the heaven-mending cave. His brothers were about to be thrown in by that person, yet he was considering, should I deceive my brothers and borrow their soul energy to let myself live? Or should I let everyone die together? Or should I sacrifice my own soul energy and distribute it to my brothers so that they have a higher chance of survival? He was still feeling gratified that he didn't betray them this time, but he didn't expect that the next moment he would once again be faced with the cruelest and most difficult choice. Thinking of the gratification just now, facing the choice now, the Dharma Supreme laughed mockingly. Was he hesitating? Was there a need for him to hesitate? He had to admit that this choice really came at a goddamn good time. This was really a fucking wonderful irony. Choice. This is the last choice. The heavenly demon's strange being laughed sinisterly. Once you make your choice, you will be completely free and free. There won't be any more choices. The Dharma Supreme's entire body started to tremble. All along, he had always avoided the word brothers. He had always avoided any contact or even any memories. When he saw the option of life and death brothers in the big choice this time, he almost instinctively chose to reject it and not choose this option. However, when he reached the end of the selection process and chose the 8th option, he still subconsciously chose this option. At that time, he had secretly observed his surroundings for a long time before he finally chose this option. It was a subtle feeling of being a thief. Whether it was intentional or not, subconsciously or not, he had ultimately chosen it. Since he had chosen it, then so be it. He could have given it up that day. Would he give it up now because he couldn't? What a joke. However, no one knew. When he chose life and death brothers as his all, he was actually so excited and throbbing in his heart. Now, he actually had to face giving up again. He had to face betrayal again. He had to face abandonment again. The Dharma Supreme started to tremble violently. His eyes were already somewhat dazed. After a long time, he suddenly covered his face with his hands. Now, he felt that he had once again returned to the front of the heaven-mending cave. He had truly returned. His brothers were all beside him at this moment. He was facing the imminent crisis of death. What should he do? What should he do? He was no longer Dongfang Bedeo, nor the Dharma Supreme, but Diwu Chochang. Back then, he was one of the Tribulations think tank who worked together with this brother to conquer the world. He, who was once the smartest, had now lost all his cultivation and was imprisoned in this absolute place. And the one who imprisoned him, it was this brother's most respected big brother. It turned out that he had other plans. It turned out that he had been using his brothers all along. Everyone was angry, they were wronged, they were confused, and they were in despair. His brothers all looked at him with eyes full of trust. Cho Chang, you clicked on the most. You are the smartest. But is there any other way? Death is nothing. But to die in such an aggrieved manner, where is the justice? Is there any other way? Diwu Cho Chang laughed bitterly in his heart. How well did Big Brother understand people like us? Since he had done such a thing now, how could he not have considered our reactions? As long as there was a glimmer of hope. He also wouldn't gather them together. If he dared to do so, it meant that no matter what, we would not be able to escape from his grasp. We would definitely die. Perhaps there is still a chance. There is only this one chance, a chance to seek justice. I cannot make any guarantees. Diwu Chochang said in a trembling voice. Chance. Tell us, tell us. The brothers were energized. That person said that after we died, the power of our spirits would be used by him to mend the sky. By then, one of us would definitely enter a cave, and there would be a total of the center of the cave. That, Diwu Chochang muttered absent-mindedly. He was trying his best to restrain himself. Don't betray us again. Don't abandon us again. At this point, the expression on his face was extremely painful. He could not help but stop. However, the brothers urged him anxiously. Hurry up, there is not much time left. He will come back at any time. Yes, the sooner the better, Chochang, tell us quickly. We all believe you. You have always been the most intelligent among us. We want justice. No matter how slim the chance is, it is good. Diwu Chochang's whole body was trembling. He was struggling fiercely in his heart. Justice? Where can I go to seek justice? I don't even want that chance. Should I just die here? Die together? Then no one would have to feel guilty. No one would have to betray us. Or should I destroy my own divine soul and share my energy with my brothers? No matter whether they can get out alive or not, no matter if there is a chance or not, I have not let my brothers down. At least they don't have to struggle anymore. But in this way, I will really have nothing. My foundation, my great ambitions, I still have a belly full of grand plans, I still have countless goals in life, I have endless wisdom. But I will have nothing. I can do things that none of them can do. But if I die like this. Chapter 1573. When the Dharma Supreme thought of this, his vision suddenly turned dark and his head started to hurt intensely. The pain this time was as if he was being sliced into pieces, surpassing all the cruel punishments that came at him together. It was as if he was in the 18 levels of hell, where all kinds of punishment methods came at him at the same time. The Dharma Supreme held his head with both hands and roared at the sky. His expression was ferocious, no longer as calm as before. He roared continuously. He had been very calm and composed all along, but the agitation at this moment was much more painful and intense than Yi Zue's earlier. Make your choice quickly. If you don't, you will lose the chance to choose. The heavenly demon eccentric's low voice rang out. I choose. The Dharma Supreme panted heavily. His whole body was sweating profusely and he was on the verge of collapsing. Quick! If you don't choose, we will die together. The Dharma Supreme tore at his own hair in pain and finally gave up. His whole body went limp as if there were no bones in it. His eyes were lifeless. I'm sorry, since he had already betrayed them once, then, what's wrong with betraying them again? I persevered this time and didn't betray them, but will they forgive me just like that? We are all people who are not allowed to have flaws. As long as there is once, there will always be a not. The Dharma Supreme smiled bitterly, but 2 drops of tears slowly fell from the corners of his eyes. I didn't expect that when I had a chance to restart my life and let you choose again, I would still choose to betray you. I still don't want to die, I really just don't want to die. Can you all forgive me? I choose to live on by myself. The Dharma Supreme's eyes widened, his consciousness completely broken down. He stared blankly at the sky, as if there were still 8 brothers looking at him. The innermost one injects the power of the spirit to give that one a chance to live. After a series of painful struggles, the Dharma Supreme finally repeated the choice he had made back then. If they had all died that time, it would have been fine. But if one of them wanted to go out and seek justice, it would be the same for any one of them. But the Dharma Supreme still chose himself. This could have allowed the other brothers to accept this chance of survival. But he didn't. This was where his pain lay. This time he was worried. Even if he had repented, he had been stubborn for 30,000 years. How could his brother forgive him? Since I can't forgive him, then what's the point of persevering? Since he had already been sentenced, there was no turning back. After making this choice, the Dharma Supreme felt as if his soul had been sucked out of his body. He fell limply to the ground. Then, a surge of pure heavenly demonic energy surged into his mind and into his heart meridians. With a loud boom, the Dharma Supreme could only feel himself suddenly shattering into thousands of pieces. He fell to the ground with a thud and lost all consciousness. A ball of extremely dense black chi quickly formed between his eyebrows. That ball of black chi was even darker than the night. Finally, it transformed into a shiny black seed. It slowly emerged from his forehead and floated in the air. Heavenly Devil's origin. Unexpectedly. He actually succeeded? He actually succeeded? The heavenly fiend eccentric, who had originally wanted to drag others down with him, stared at the heavenly fiend origin that had just been formed. His eyes and mouth were wide open, and his face was filled with disbelief. I really didn't think that I would succeed this time. Even at the last moment, it was already a failure. But he actually succeeded. This was too unexpected. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief before he finally believed that this was actually true. He couldn't wait to reach out and split that shiny black object into two. Half of it immediately dissipated into a thick black smoke that was shiny and black. He took a deep breath and the black smoke was like a river converging. It gushed into his mouth like a fountain. With a wave of his hand, a gust of black chi was sent out. He urged the remaining half back into the Dharma Supreme's body. With a swoosh, it entered the Dharma Supreme's forehead and disappeared without a trace. At this moment, the Dharma Supreme was still unconscious and was completely unaware of all these changes. Finally, one succeeded. Demon Venerable above. Thank you for your grace that there are still heavenly fiends on this forsaken continent. Otherwise, this unfilial grandson of mine would have died mysteriously in this low-level plane. The heavenly fiend eccentric prostrated himself on the ground, so emotional that his eyes were brimming with hot tears. After absorbing that little bit of heavenly fiend origin energy, his body seemed to have improved considerably. At least, it was no longer as easy to die as before. Now that I have absorbed the first heavenly fiend origin energy, I can be considered to have some capital again. I can finally try to target ordinary martial artists. The heavenly fiend eccentric muttered to himself, if I only target people who practice demonic arts, the amount is too little and can only be found by chance. But now, I have more or less accumulated some. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to develop and grow stronger. He lifted the Dharma Supreme's body and floated into the depths of the forest. This fellow won't die, but he will only wake up after half a month. By then, he will be a genuine beginner heavenly fiend. My body won't be able to fully recover in a short period of time, so I can only rely on him. The 1 million people I killed previously was enough to set up 15 demonic arrays. After I absorb a few more people, I will go and kill another batch. If I do that, it won't be just 1 million, I will need at least 3 million to barely be enough. The people in this plane are really trash. If I can awaken the demonic heart, I will be able to spread my demonic nature. There will be no kindness in this world. Everyone will be a demon. The Demon Venerable's words are simply too reasonable. Ah, which of the Demon Venerable's words is not reasonable? Just as the Dharma Supreme and Yi Zui were accepting the selection of demonic arrays in the forest, Chu Yang and the rest of the 12 people were rushing toward the forest without stopping. Where the city of fairies was, where the 8th fragment of the Calamity Sword was. There was no time to lose. The heavenly fiend's descent had been confirmed. If everyone's strength couldn't be raised, then what awaited them would really be death. Therefore, everyone was burning with anxiety. It was just that no one would have thought that the place was also where the devil was. Nothing could be more coincidental than this. Along the way, Chu Yang and Duke Yu were still at loggerheads, bargaining with each other nonstop. A certain king of hell who was full of wisdom seemed to have gained the upper hand. No way. If I find it, I will definitely bring it away. There is no room for negotiation. How can that be? Chu Yang, humans should be content with what they have and not be too greedy. Why not? This is already my bottom line. If you find it difficult, I don't mind backing out. I won't go to the city of fairies with you. How about it? You win. And that? I want it too. I want it all. If you find it difficult, tell me. I will back out and you won't have to be troubled. It's simple. Hiss. Every time there was a bargaining dispute, as long as Chu Yang used his trump card, back out. I won't go to the city of fairies. I won't help you. Duke, you would definitely be defeated by this threat. He would retreat immediately. The two quarreled and bargained along the way, refusing to budge an inch and spitting saliva everywhere. In this kind of situation, the brothers naturally sided with Chu Yang. Duke Yu was even more alone. Every time, he would be angered to death. After losing, he would sign an agreement and leave hatefully, hiss and hiss. But not long after, Chu Yang would think of a new condition and immediately start extorting again. Thus, the cycle repeated. It was unknown if it was because a certain Duke Yu had gone too far in extorting people in the past 3 days that the heavens couldn't stand it anymore and sent a certain king of hell to punish him. In short, a certain Duke Yu was extorted to death by a certain king of hell, but he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. King of Hell Chu took advantage of the situation and pursued the enemy. The brothers beat the enemy when he was down. These days, Duke Yu was suffering every day. Mo Qin Wu and Mo Lei were puzzled by this and were very puzzled. Seeing that Mo Tianji and the others didn't stop him, the two women finally couldn't help but whisper to each other. Something seems wrong. Although Mo Qin Wu was exceptionally smart, she was also a little confused now. So you also noticed it. Something is indeed wrong. Mo Lei also frowned and said, although Duke Yu isn't one of the Tribulation brothers, he's at least a very good friend of ours. Furthermore, he's helped the few of them many times before. Bargaining and extortion like this for a friend is a little too much. Not to mention anything else, just the last time he barged into the Allied forces alone and attracted the attention of a large number of experts. That was a huge risk. Thinking about it now, I still feel scared. If it were me, not to mention going, just talking about it makes me nervous. Just based on this, Boss Chu really shouldn't be so calculative, yes. Mo Qin Wu nodded her little head repeatedly. I also can't understand this matter. Chu Yang isn't that kind of person. Why is he so calculative? If it's just once or twice, it's fine. Everyone can laugh and joke around, and it'll be over. But it's repeated extortion. Isn't it a little heartless? It seems a little unkind. Mo Lei frowned. Why is it like this? I also don't understand the reason why Chu Yang is doing this. Could it be that he has some difficulties? Why don't we ask my second brother? He might know the reason. Mo Qin Wu said, don't let them play around too much and hurt the hearts of friends. That would be really hard to make up for. The gains don't make up for the losses. Mo Lei deeply agreed. The two women were both intelligent people. They didn't act rashly and put this matter aside for the time being. Chu Yang and his brothers were still having a war of words with Duke Yu when they set up camp that night. It seemed as if they were addicted to this game. It seemed as if they wouldn't give up until they had thoroughly dug out all of this guy's resources and took advantage of him as much as possible. But Mo Qin Wu quietly pulled Mo Tianji out. Chapter 1574. Mo Lei also followed. She was slightly dissatisfied. She was prepared to give Mo Tianji a stern warning if he couldn't give her a satisfactory explanation. As a woman behind a man, she had to speak up when it was time. After all, these brothers had been through so much to reach this point. It would be a pity if there was any misunderstanding that led to a knot in each other's hearts. What's the matter? Mo Tianji, who was originally deep in thought, was suddenly pulled out of the crowd by his sister and into a private room. He couldn't help but be confused. What was his little sister doing? Shu, lower your voice. Mo Qin Wu put a finger to her lips and whispered, let's first set up a supreme martial artist force field to block out the sound. It won't be easy for others to hear what we're about to say. Mo Lei agreed with this. If Duke Yu heard this, even if he didn't think much about it before, he would think much about it now. Then, the two of them would be doing bad things with good intentions. The Supreme Martial Artist Force Field was quickly completed. What's going on? Why are you making it so mysterious? Mo Tianji scratched his head in confusion. He asked in confusion. What's going on? Why are you still asking? I thought that second brother was a steady person. It turns out that you're also so frivolous. You've led Chu Yang astray. Mo Qingwu whispered, "Second brother, don't you feel that you've been a little too much recently?" "I've led Chu Yang astray? We've been too much? What do you mean?" Mo Tianji tilted his head. It seemed that he was implicated again. Did Chu Yang do something bad? But these days, Chu Yang spent most of his time with his brothers. There was nothing unusual. As for me leading Chu Yang astray, this sentence was really incomprehensible. It was clearly Chu Yang who was slowly leading me to change. Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei Er stood together. Mo Qingwu said bluntly, "You're still saying that you're stirring up trouble, especially Chu Yang. He's too much. Second brother must have instructed him to do this." "Chu Yang is too much? I instructed him to do this? What did he do?" Mo Tianji's expression became more and more strange. Are you referring to the bargaining and extortion with Dukyu these days? So you know. Mo Lei Er heaved a sigh of relief. You knew, yet you didn't say anything to stop it. Could it be that you really planned this? Mo Qingwu stared at her second brother as if she was looking at a schemer. Could it be that the two of you think that Chu Yang has let down his friends by doing this? Is it excessive? Mo Tianji's expression became even more strange. Do you think that? Dukyu is definitely not an enemy. In fact, he's a very close friend of ours. He's even helped us a lot along the way. Isn't it inappropriate for us to scheme against him like this? Yes, that's right. The two girls nodded their heads fiercely. They shouldn't have done that. Mo Tianji's words were indeed the most important thing. Mo Tianji let out a long sigh of relief. I thought it was something important. So it was because of this. You guys, isn't this a big deal? Mo Qingwu said cautiously, "Second brother, don't hurt a friend's heart." Mo Tianji found it funny and shook his head. I only realized today that the way men and women think is different. Men and women think differently? What do you mean by that? Hearing this, Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei Er were a little depressed. This Mo Tianji, what nonsense is he talking about? Brother Mo, what do you mean? Please be specific. Let us understand. As a black devil, Mo Lei Er was not below Brother Jie in terms of martial arts knowledge, intelligence, and experience in the martial world. She had always boasted that she was not inferior to men. Now that she heard Mo Tianji's words, she couldn't help but feel a little unhappy. Don't misunderstand. I understand what you mean. Mo Tianji smiled, and with a hint of ridicule he said, "The two of you are worried that Dukyu is really angry because of the repeated extortions, and Chu Yang's actions are suspicious of taking advantage of the situation. Furthermore, he's taking advantage of a friend's situation. His methods are a little despicable, right?" The two girls didn't say anything. It was obvious that they agreed. That was indeed what they thought. Was that not the case? Logically speaking, your thoughts aren't wrong. But have you noticed that after being extorted by Chu Yang for so long, Dukyu couldn't take it anymore and retreated in grievance, right? But have you noticed one thing? Dukyu lost every time, but he fought every time. It can be said that he lost every battle, but he fought every time. Every time he said that he couldn't take it anymore, but after so many times, have you seen him really unable to take it? Is Dukyu of the three heavens someone who only knows how to show off? Mo Tianji smiled. Dukyu is proud and arrogant. He won't easily lower his head to others. With Dukyu's temper, why would he give in time and time again for an external object? Logically speaking, he should have left after this one time. He should have long given up on the city of fairies and fled far away. But in reality, he has already done this more than 10 times. Why is he still here? Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei Er looked at each other. Yes, why? Mo Tianji smiled mysteriously. It's very simple. If you can't understand from looking at Dukyu, you can analyze from the other side. Everyone knows that Chu Yang is definitely not a heartless person. But this time, he's very different from his usual self. He's trying to take advantage of others and would rather die than suffer a loss. Not only is he very different from his usual self, he's also relentless and relentless. Is Chu Yang really such a despicable person who forgets righteousness at the sight of profit? How is that possible? Second brother, don't talk nonsense. Chu Yang must have his reasons for doing so. There must be an important reason, Mo Qingwu refuted immediately. Yes, you know that it's impossible. But why don't you think about why he would still do that? Mo Qingwu blinked, but she was confused. Yes, Duke Yu wasn't such a person. Chu Yang wasn't such a person either. But why did such a thing happen? Mo Lei Er was also thinking. Gu Du Xing isn't a fool. Ao Xie Yun and Xie Dan Qiong aren't either. Dong Wu Shang isn't either. GMO and Luo Kadi look carefree, but they can see this matter clearly. That's why they didn't come out to stop it. Instead, they added fuel to the fire. But Mo Tianji asked. When he asked, his eyes were only looking at Mo Qingwu. He wanted his sister to learn some things. As for Mo Lei Er, that was Dong Wu Shang's responsibility. It didn't seem to have much to do with him. It wasn't good to overstep his boundaries, especially when the other party was his brother's woman. Mo Qingwu blinked in confusion. She tilted her head and fell into deep thought. Yes? Why? But Mo Tianji smiled bitterly and looked at Mo Lei Er. Seeing that she was also confused, he couldn't help but understand. Men and women are indeed different. My sister is like that, and the black demon is like that too. No matter how smart a woman is, she won't be able to understand a real man. Just like how even the most amazing man in the world wouldn't be able to fully understand any woman's psychological changes. It's the same principle. I'll say it in more detail. Have you all noticed that Duke Yu had been blackmailed by Chu Yang many times? In fact, he had asked for it himself. In other words, he had delivered it to his doorstep. Mo Tianji could only remind her further. For example, yesterday morning, Duke Yu said something in anger. That sentence was, "Since you're going overboard, you can take whatever you want from the city of fairies. But if there's the holy fruit of the fairies, you definitely can't touch it." Isn't that right? Is there such a sentence? Yes, there is. Mo Qingwu nodded her little head. Duke Yu then said that he misspoke? Misspoke? What kind of person is Duke Yu? He might not have misspoken even once in his life. Why would he misspeak at such a critical moment when he's being blackmailed? Mo Tianji snorted. Mo Qingwu frowned. Especially after Duke Yu misspoke, Chu Yang immediately started to take advantage of the situation and started to blackmail the holy fruit of the fairies that was specially told not to touch. Yes, there was such a thing. Chu Yang is really too much. He already said not to touch it, why did he? Does this have anything to do with what you said? Could it be, Mo Qingwu and Mo, or were both completely confused? Thinking about it this way, it seemed like one was willing to take the hit and the other was willing to take the hit. Both of them were doing it on purpose. The so-called, not to touch it, was just a hint? Forget it, don't worry about it. Let me explain it to you in detail. Mo Tianji sighed. I really don't understand. Even Dong Wushang can understand the essence of this problem. Why are you two super smart women stuck in a dead end and unable to come out? Mo Lei Er frowned and was about to fly into a rage. What do you mean by, even Dong Wushang could understand it? Mo Tianji, what do you mean? Dong Wushang isn't as good as you. If you can understand it, how can he not? Mo Lei Er was furious. It's fine if you're talking about me, but you're talking about my man? According to Mo Tianji's words, isn't that saying that the man I like is the stupidest? Mo Tianji's face contorted and he was in great pain. He definitely couldn't answer this question. Once he did, he would be waiting for a thunderbolt from the clear sky and a storm. He had to endure it. After rubbing his temples for a long time, he finally decided to avoid the topic. He explained directly, Duke Yu's identity is no longer a secret to us. He's a fairy, possibly the last fairy and the only fairy in the world. Duke Yu's current actions and his ultimate goal in life are also very obvious. In this life, he doesn't want to rush up to the heavenly imperial court. He doesn't even want to participate in the battles of the mortal world. He only wants to accompany Jun Lulu and live a carefree life in the heavenly imperial court. Isn't this hard to understand? Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei Er nodded. Indeed, Duke Yu had always had this tendency. Including the restoration of the city of fairies this time, it was only driven by the will of the ancestors and the mission of the race. It wasn't his true intention. And this point was made clear when he first met Chu Yang. Chapter 1575. That's why it's hard to understand. If it's not inevitable, why do they have to compromise? It doesn't seem to make sense. Mo Tianji laughed in a deep voice and said, "Moreover, all of you have seen Duke Yu's special ability. He can make flowers bloom in the cold winter. He can also make elixirs that have been growing for thousands of years mature in just a few years or even a few months. His cultivation may not be considered heaven-defying, but this special ability of his race is the best in the world. It's not an exaggeration to say that he is the best in the world. As for us, we're going to charge up to the heavenly imperial court in the future. Chu Yang has the unique ability to fuse heavy pills. Duke Yu can accelerate the growth of all elixirs for Chu Yang's use. If Duke Yu and Chu Yang work together, what will the result be?" Mo Tianji asked calmly. Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei gasped at the same time. One could fuse heavy pills that could bring the dead back to life and increase cultivation. The other could accelerate the growth of all elixirs. If the two of them really worked together, it was equivalent to an irresistible concept. They had a treasure trove with them. As long as the brothers prepared 1 or 2 pills before every battle, everyone would be equivalent to Rui Butong of the Phoenix clan. They couldn't be killed or destroyed. This was the legendary ultimate luxurious dream combination. A legendary combination that even myths and miracles couldn't describe. This kind of combination is enough to make anyone and any force in the world jealous. It's the same even in the Heaven Imperial Court. However, this result is contrary to Duke Yu's lifelong dream. He has never thought of going up there. Therefore, this legend cannot be realized. But if Chu Yang helps him find the spring of life and help him restore the city of elves, it's equivalent to a new lease of life for the elves. To Duke Yu, the only elf, it's an even bigger favor that can never be fully repaid. Even if we don't talk about their friendship, just this favor alone is enough for Duke Yu to serve him for life. If Chu Yang goes up to the Heavenly Imperial Court, what will Duke Yu do? What can he do? Are we just going to watch our benefactor fight a bloody battle without doing anything? While he enjoys the worry-free environment that his benefactor and brother created for him. With Duke Yu's personality, how can he do that? But if he follows Chu Yang, what about Duke Yu's lifelong wish? He still has so many things to worry about. When Mo Tianji said this, Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei sighed in unison. Yes, this was indeed a problem. It was difficult to satisfy both sides. He was in a dilemma. It was an unsolvable dead knot. Therefore, this matter has become a dead knot in a dilemma. Mo Tianji said in a profound manner, "How can Chu Yang make things difficult for Duke Yu?" He was even more unwilling to force Duke Yu to do something that he didn't want to do. Therefore, Chu Yang's current actions were to resolve this dead knot between the two sides. He was treating this matter as a complete transaction. It's a naked deal full of exploitation. After the deal, we won't owe each other anything. His current attitude from the bottom of his heart shows that he no longer recognizes Duke Yu as his friend. Both of them are just a group of people who benefit from each other. And Chu Yang himself is also waiting for the right price. They extorted as much as they could, trying their best to take advantage of the situation, taking it bit by bit. In this way, both sides only have interests left. Once the city of elves recovered, Chu Yang would be able to retreat. Even if Duke Yu wants to repay something, Chu Yang can also firmly refuse. This is equivalent to telling Duke Yu, "You don't owe me anything at all." In this way, Duke Yu's heart will also feel better. Therefore, in what Chu Yang is doing now, all of us are working hard to cooperate. But no one said it out loud. You guys only see the surface of the matter and never think deeper. The more Chu Yang extorts, the more Duke Yu will gladly endure it. That's the logic. Mo Tianji took a breath. That's why I said that this is a matter between men. You women are really far behind in this aspect. Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei looked ashamed. I see. Emo Qingwu said, I knew it. Chu Yang is a man of character who values relationships. How can he be so unscrupulous? So there's a deeper meaning. Emo took a deep breath. She said, it's just that, this is a little, too much of a pity. Unfortunately, with Chu Yang around, it was equivalent to having a natural alchemy furnace. As long as there were herbs, it was equivalent to having an endless supply. With Duke Yu around, it was equivalent to not having any shortage of spirit herbs. If Duke Yu didn't go up, with this missing link, he could only passively search for finished spirit herbs. In that case, more than half of his functions would be cut off. Without herbs, it was basically like a housewife couldn't cook without rice. It's indeed a pity. Emo Tianji also sighed. But not only do we have to respect our friends' wishes, we also have to think of ways to fulfill them. Chu Yang's extortion now has made me respect him even more. If it were me, Emo Tianji, I really wouldn't be able to do this. After all, the temptation is really too great. And no matter what Duke Yu does, no matter what he pays, in my opinion, it's hard to offset the glory of the City of Elves, but Chu Yang is able to let this happen quietly. In this matter, I believe that there may not be one person who is so selfless. But Chu Yang really did it? Emo Tianji sighed. From the moment I discovered this, I knew that I was really convinced by him. I'm not as good as Chu Yang. This breadth of mind is something that I can't compare to in my whole life. He looked warmly at Emo Qingwu. Perhaps you didn't realize that since a few days ago, when Chu Yang looked for you, I didn't object at all? You praised him without restraint in front of me, and I wasn't angry anymore. It's just because he's worthy of your reliance, worthy of your praise, and worthy of your love. He's even more worthy of my, Emo Tianji's, recognition. Emo Qingwu's face turned red. Instantly, she felt both embarrassed and happy. There was also an indescribable sense of pride. This is Chu Yang, the man that I like. He's so different. Also, between us brothers, it's precisely because we realized the essence of this matter that we became more united and more cohesive. Emo Tianji shook his head and said, our brothers have always been very good. But there are two people, namely Ao Shiyun and Xie Danqiong, who have always been a little incompatible. Although it's just a little, there's always a gap. The foundation of the relationship between the two of them and the rest of us is slightly weaker. Fundamentally speaking, it's just fate. The fate of the tribulation is irresistible. The dragon and the phoenix race are indispensable. That's why they became one of the tribulations by chance. But after all, it's not as deep as Chu Yang's Du Xing and Wu Shang's, who fought all the way from the lower three heavens. But after this matter, that feeling has shrunk infinitely. In these few days, it's almost completely disappeared. Perhaps today or tomorrow, that little bit of incompatibility will also completely disappear. Emo Tianji said, it's because of Chu Yang's actions. Perhaps Chu Yang himself hasn't realized this subtle change, but I've already clearly noticed it. His charisma, doing things honestly, and treating people with good intentions, unintentionally and unintentionally, good karma will naturally form. So this matter is also of great benefit to us. Some things don't need to be said because everyone understands. But since you've asked today, I have to explain it clearly. Emo Tianji said warmly, because you can only ask me about this matter. You can't ask Chu Yang or Dong Wusheng. If you ask, they'll be very unhappy. Emo Tianji secretly added another sentence in his heart. Perhaps Chu Yang won't care about explaining because of his love for Xiao Wu, but Dong Wusheng will definitely fly into a rage. Because he'll think that Emo Lei's suspicion is blasphemous to the relationship between his brothers. Of course, facing Emo Qingwu and Emo Lei, even if there was such a difference, Emo Tianji wouldn't say it out loud. Otherwise, his head would really be kicked by a donkey. Emo Tianji leisurely walked out of the room and continued to participate in the negotiation and battle of words with Duke Yu. Emo Qingwu and Emo Lei were speechless. The two of us have thought too simply. Her smiled bitterly and said, Men's hearts are really hard to find. It's obviously for the sake of others. It's obviously something that both sides understand, but they still want to deliberately mystify things. They already have a tacit understanding, but on the surface, they still want to make it seem like it's real and make the woman behind them worry. It's really, really hard to understand. Jianghu smiled and a kind of understanding rose in her eyes. She said slowly, perhaps, this is the so-called self-esteem of men. Her raised her head and looked at Jianghu with some surprise. She nodded slowly and said, yes. The next morning, the 10 men who had been arguing for half the night were all in high spirits. This nightmare of collecting debts has finally come to an end. About 300 miles ahead, as long as we turn around that mountain, we'll be able to see the forest where our destination is. Yu laughed heartily. Old man is finally back. This time, it was very likely that he would be able to realize his lifelong pursuit and complete the great cause of his race. He would be able to completely break free from the shackles in his heart and get rid of the ties that belonged to his race. Yu's heart was filled with infinite joy and relief. He turned his head slightly and looked at Chu Yang. A trace of apology flashed through Yu's eyes. It was just a flash, so fast that no one noticed it. Or perhaps, even if someone saw it, they pretended not to see it. I'll keep this apology in my heart for the rest of my life. That's right. We're getting closer and closer to our goal. Chu Yang also smiled proudly and said, this also means that the day you fulfill your promise is getting closer and closer. Brother Yu, don't be stingy and go back on your words. All kinds of medicine have to be sold in this world. Even my heavy pills have a source, but the medicine for regret can't be bought anywhere. Chapter 1576. Yu was stunned. He gritted his teeth and said, can't you just let me be happy for a while before you speak? Will you die if you shut up for a while? The brothers laughed. The more unrestrained they were in their conversation, the closer their friendship would be. How could they see their true feelings if they kept everything hidden? At the same time, the group of people used their best movement techniques and rushed out like arrows leaving the bow. At such a close distance, no matter what kind of mount it was, it would not be faster than a supreme martial artist flying at full speed. In just a few minutes, the group had already arrived at the top of the mountain and looked down at the boundless forest in front of them. Below them, there was a huge forest full of rich greenery. It stretched for thousands of miles and they really couldn't see the end of it. The forest's greenery rose and fell with the wind like the waves of the sea. Looking at this beautiful and spectacular scene, the brothers were all dazzled. It's really beautiful. Chu Yang praised sincerely. This scenery is really the heaven's equal holy realm. If I can roam here for the rest of my life, I wouldn't even exchange it for being a deity. Yu thought for a while and said with a smile, what's so difficult about this? If Brother Chu ever gets tired of the martial world, you can come and settle down here anytime. No matter when, for generations to come, I will always reserve a place for Brother Chu here. Chu Yang laughed. How can I not follow Brother Yu's good intentions? Thank you very much, Brother Yu. Please remember to reserve a place with good scenery for me. The two of them looked at each other and laughed in unison. However, both of them knew that Chu Yang's words were already the final conclusion. In the heavenly continent, their friendship would last forever. Outside the heavenly continent, only Chu Yang, Motng, and the others would go together. Yu had already completely let go. Perhaps there was still a lot of guilt in his heart, but up until today, Chu Yang had completely erased it. Or rather, during this period of time. As their friendship grew deeper, there was no need for both sides to feel guilty anymore. It was just that Chu Yang and Yu didn't know that because of this sentence today, the most beautiful place in the City of Fairies had lost its owner for a long time. It had become the most forbidden place in the City of Fairies. No matter how powerful, famous, clan master or leader came to the City of Fairies, they had no chance to enter that most beautiful place. Even the powerful people in the heavenly imperial court couldn't enter, just for the promise of reserving a place for himself today. Go down. Chu Yang smiled casually. Hold on. Motng took a deep breath. His complexion turned solemn as he looked at the forest below the mountain. Then, he said in an exceptionally solemn tone, something is wrong. This seems a little strange. Strange? Chu Yang and Duke Yu frowned as they heard this. All the brothers concentrated their gazes and looked over. Just now, everyone's attention was not on observing the situation, so they did not pay too much attention to it. Now they focused on observing. Indeed, they could faintly feel that there was something wrong with this forest. It was really a little strange. The forest was still the same forest, full of greenery, full of vitality, and full of the aura of life. However, in this great atmosphere, there was a hidden sense of danger that had yet to be revealed. Although it was hidden to the extreme, it still felt very real. It was as if there was a ferocious beast hidden inside. It was about to devour someone. Moreover, it was a peerless beast that could devour anyone. This feeling is somewhat familiar. Ao Xie Yun frowned and said, an exceptionally terrifying pressure. It seems that even the heart can't beat normally under this pressure. Yes, this feeling. It's the same feeling that I had when the black aura descended that day. It's just that it's a lot fainter now, as if it's completely hidden. However, the feeling is indeed there. It's that feeling. Once Ao Xie Yun mentioned it, all the brothers immediately reacted. They all expressed their agreement. Not only is it completely hidden, it's also deliberately concealing itself. However, a heavenly demon is a heavenly demon. No matter how much it conceals itself, it will still be detected. Chu Yang's gaze was solemn. The conclusion is that the heavenly demon is actually here. Mo Tianji forced a smile and said, Brother Yu, if our estimation is correct, then your lair is likely to be occupied by the enemy at this moment. And this enemy is someone with terrifying strength that we can't contend against right now. Duke Yu gritted his teeth and said, Heavenly demon? It's actually him? Why would he be here? This is too much of a coincidence. It's so coincidental that it's frightening. Chu Yang took a deep breath and his gaze was deep. After the heavenly demon massacred the Shi clan, his whereabouts were unknown. No one in the entire martial world knows his whereabouts. However, although it's unexpected that he's here, it's not unreasonable. This is because from the south of the Shi clan, one has to pass through this dense forest. Such a vast and dense place is undoubtedly the best place to hide. Duke Yu instantly felt his teeth ache and said angrily, What the fuck is this? We finally got a chance to restore our clan's glory, but it's actually taken by that heavenly demon? This is really outrageous. Everyone was speechless. If this was the case, Duke Yu was really unlucky. Chu Yang pondered and said, Don't be too depressed. This enemy may not be undefeatable. Duke Yu turned his head. Oh. Judging from the situation of the heavenly demon's descent, he's indeed an enemy that we can't defeat at our current stage. However, when he was dealing with the Shi clan, he inadvertently revealed his true strength. A low-grade supreme martial artist was able to escape from his hands. What does this mean? This means that this heavenly demon's descent is not only severely injured, but his injuries are also far from fully recovered. His strength is also far from his peak state. Now that he's annihilated the Shi clan, I believe that his strength must have been depleted. Therefore, he stopped here and hid in such a secluded place to recuperate. If not for this, the heavenly demon wouldn't be so peaceful in this world. Also, another important reason why I'm able to deduce that his injuries have not fully recovered and are even showing signs of worsening is that he's obviously deliberately concealing all his aura so that no one can detect him hiding here. However, we still managed to detect him. This result means that this heavenly demon has a problem controlling his strength. Therefore, his injuries are definitely very serious and his strength must be greatly reduced. If this is the case, the heavenly demon is very likely to be at his weakest state now. Otherwise, with his strength, he could run rampant in the world. Who would he need to be afraid of in this world? Why would he need to hide his whereabouts like this? Even if he deliberately hides his whereabouts, he can't hide it well. Based on this deduction, although we don't have absolute confidence in getting rid of the heavenly demon or killing him, the risk may not be too big if we take a risk now, Chu Yang said calmly. Chu Yang insipidly said, This risk is worth a try. If it succeeds, we'll help Brother Yu take back this forest. And we'll eliminate the hidden dangers of this calamity. But if it doesn't succeed, we'll still be able to escape unscathed. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows and sneered, but no matter what, we can't be afraid before we even fight. All the brothers roared in agreement, saying yes, in unison. Mo Tianji's expression did not change, but he sighed in his heart. As a wise and far-sighted person, how could he not have thought of this? Previously, he had already said that he could not fight against the heavenly demon because he wanted to avoid this place first. It was not that he was afraid of the heavenly demon, but he still could not bear to give up the great temptation of the fairy race and the tribulation sword master. He wanted to make a final attempt. It would be best if everyone left this dangerous place temporarily and continued to wander the Jianghu together. At that time, Elder Yu would naturally leave with the brothers. In the worst case, he could use all his strength to look for elixirs in the following period of time. Then he could let Elder Yu do everything he could to make more preparations for the brothers' bloody battle in the heavenly layer. As long as Elder Yu was among the brothers, Mo Tianji had countless methods to make these things happen. But this time, Chu Yang very clearly refuted his plan. He completely nipped his plan in the bud. He did not want to force Elder Yu in the slightest. Moreover, this also contained a warning from Chu Yang to Mo Tianji. Perhaps the others did not understand, but Chu Yang knew that Mo Tianji understood. Brothers, this time, we may face the heavenly demon for the first time in our lives. Chu Yang's expression was serious. It may also be the most dangerous battle since we started our cultivation. Everything must be done with survival as the prerequisite. If anything goes wrong, leave immediately. Chu Yang said deeply. Tianji, you will plan the layout. Don't ask for victory, just safety. Ensure everyone's safety is the most important thing. Then, Chu Yang appointed the person to make the strategic plan. When faced with a specific goal and a specific plan, there was definitely no one more suitable than Mo Tianji. Mo Tianji did not decline. He only pondered for a while and made a decision. Wait a while. We will search first. After all, we don't know the exact location of the heavenly demon. So, we must be careful. Everyone, form a four-sided team. Don't split up. Once you discover something, immediately rush forward in a cone shape. Chu Yang and Gu Du-Xing will be on one side. Elder Yu will be on one side. Dong Wushang and Ao Xie-Yun will be on one side. Rui Butong, Yu and Xie Dan-Qiong will be on one side. GMO Kadi, Xing Wu Lei Er, and I will support any side at any time. Remember, once you discover something, you don't need to speak or breathe. The only thing you need to do is to close your eyes and use all your cultivation to unleash your most powerful attack to inform us. Naturally, we will surround and protect you from behind at the first possible moment. Then we will replace your sharp position. Just one attack. Remember, hold your breath and don't open your eyes. Use all your strength to attack. Mo Tianji said seriously, legend has it that the heavenly demon is best at illusions. As long as you protect yourself and block your senses when you attack, you will be safe. After we meet up, we will have even less to worry about. Even if the heavenly demon's strength is still shocking, it is not undefeatable. As long as we are not afraid of the enemy, everything will be fine. Chapter 1577. Mo Tianji warned sincerely and then turned to Chu Yang. What do you think needs to be added? Chu Yang pondered for a moment and found that there were basically no oversights. He said, just add one more point. If we encounter an extraterrestrial demon and are ultimately no match for it, then Brother Yu and I, Lone Ranger, Wushang and Tong, will work together to cover the retreat. Everyone else must escape immediately. No one is allowed to hesitate and definitely not turn back. If we get separated, we will meet at the tavern in the town where we came from. Be there or be square. Those who are not responsible for covering the retreat are absolutely forbidden to attack. Whoever dares to turn back and delay will drag the brothers down and die together. This is important to remember. Chu Yang took a deep breath and his dangerous gaze slid across GMO and Luo Kadi's faces. Others could still weigh the pros and cons, but these two fellows really didn't care about their lives once they were impulsive. GMO grinned and said indifferently, remember, we all have one life anyway. I'll just escape first. If I find that you guys are dead, I'll go look for you guys again. Are you still worried that Second Master Ji won't listen to orders? Luo Kadi nodded vigorously. Second Master Luo will also escape first. Chu Yang was furious. Beat him up. Who the hell are you calling yourself a master? Immediately, punches and kicks rained down, beating the two second masters into a pulp. Chu Yang and the others rushed down the mountaintop like a hurricane. Then, they rushed in the direction of the forest like lightning. What Chu Yang and the others didn't know was that just a few thousand feet above their heads, high in the sky, there were two people standing there, silently watching Chu Yang and the others. They had been standing there all this time, but no one would have noticed that they were actually standing there. They had already become one with the void. There was no sign of them. Lord, isn't this a little too risky? Although this extraterrestrial demon's strength has already been reduced by me, an extraterrestrial demon is still an extraterrestrial demon. An old man with a white goatee looked down with an unusually cautious gaze. Seeing Chu Yang and the others rushing into the dense forest like a hurricane, his gaze was a little puzzled, vaguely like he was looking at dead people. He couldn't help but criticize in his heart, such an extraterrestrial demon, and I actually have to deal with it personally. Moreover, they are like embroidery. I can't kill them. If I were to relax, I would only be able to kill them. This old man really spent a lot of effort. I had to kill dozens of them before I was able to control my strength. He won't. The Lord this person mentioned was none other than Shui Leihan, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. At this moment, he was still dressed like a soldier. His face was calm. They are not far from breaking through the void. It is not a bad thing to know the existence, strength, and tricks of the heavenly demon earlier. He paused. He said, "Why not? Why would I waste so much effort to get a half-dead heavenly demon here? Is it fun?" Master's intention, this old man naturally understands. But, their current strength, what if? The old man was still worried. Just like what Shui Leihan had said, even with Shui Leihan's ability and power, it would still take a lot of effort to bring the heavenly demon from the extraterritorial battlefield outside the Heaven Palace. What if, with you and me here to look after him, what could possibly happen? If they can't even pass this hurdle, even if they do, how much progress can they make? Shui Leihan said lightly, "Prime Minister, Chu Yang and the rest are about to break through the Heaven Palace. Once they do, it will be the true beginning. And I am destined not to be able to watch over them all the time. So, before they break through the Heaven Palace, I will start my closed-door training." Shui Leihan narrowed his eyes and said heavily, "I will start my closed-door training. You will be in charge of everything. For the time being, let them explore the Heaven Palace on their own. All of you, do not interfere with any of their matters. You just have to maintain the stability of the overall situation." Yes, this old man understands. That old man replied respectfully. Only if there is a conflict with the other sovereigns, you can then intervene. Otherwise, they can do whatever they want. Shui Leihan said again. An inexplicable look flashed across the old man's eyes. These few little fellows. Were they qualified to have a conflict with the other sovereigns? They were peerless overlords who were on par with the Lord. But it seemed that the Lord had really put in a lot of effort for these few people. He did not hesitate to use so much manpower, material resources, and even many favors. Manpower and material resources were nothing. Favors were the most difficult debts to repay. However, Shui Leihan's next sentence really shocked him. If I don't go into closed-door training, I'm afraid I won't be able to resist getting involved personally. It's just that the impact on their growth will be too great. It won't be of any benefit to the overall situation in the future. The old man with the goatee widened his eyes, almost speechless. He was guessing a possibility in his heart. Could this Chu Yang be the Lord's illegitimate son? Could it be that the Lord had once had a one-night stand here? This and that. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but have a strange look in his eyes. What are you thinking about? Why are you in such a daze? Seeing the old man's ambiguous look, Shui Leihan was instantly angered. The old man turned his head awkwardly, thinking to himself, I've really been rude this time. I haven't made a fool of myself like this for hundreds of thousands of years. Don't overlook any of their details. Especially pay attention to the process of their battle. Shui Leihan said, "You can watch carefully. You might be shocked." There seemed to be great confidence in Shui Leihan's tone. The old man secretly grinned, thinking to himself, what kind of attention can there be? Against such a half-dead heavenly demon, I can kill it with a puff of my breath. Yet, I still have to observe it with full concentration. Even a guardian wouldn't be as protective as you. What kind of unexpected changes can happen to things in the lower planes? And to be shocked? In the depths of the dense forest, the heavenly demon eccentric whose injuries had improved slightly was guiding a cloud of black aura that was even darker than the thickest ink to roll up and down. He was condensing his own demonic energy, hoping to recover as soon as possible. In front of him, there was an additional hole. In the hole, the Dharma Supreme lay quietly. Another cloud of black aura that was equally black encircled his body. The more it spun, the more urgent it became. It gave off a faint whooshing sound continuously. This empty mouth had obviously reached a critical juncture. The heavenly demon eccentric stuck his head out from time to check on the situation in the hole. He murmured, "It's really soon this time. He's going to wake up soon. I really didn't expect this matter to be so troublesome. It's already been a few days." Right at this moment, his expression tensed up. He raised his head abruptly. Someone's coming? The heavenly demon eccentric's senses naturally wouldn't be wrong. Someone was indeed coming, and this person didn't come with good intentions. The heavenly demon eccentric didn't get a response to his question. The only response he got was a swift and violent aura that could topple mountains and overturn seas. That was an aura that was filled with hostility, murderous intent, and death. Due to the aura, it was as if a violent hurricane had suddenly swept through the entire forest. Countless towering trees. Neatly, they were blown to one side by the wind. It's definitely an enemy coming. Could it be that it's attracted by that little guy who escaped previously? The heavenly demon eccentric's expression instantly became brutal. How dare they come to find trouble with me? Courting death. It should be nutrients delivered to my doorstep in order for me to recover as soon as possible. With a sweep of his body, he turned into a cloud of black smoke and rushed in the direction of that extremely strong aura. Duke Yu and Chu Yang formed a team of two. With relaxed expressions and slow movements, they swept into the dense forest. The other teams maintained the same attitude as the two of them and entered at the same time. If one were to judge from their appearance, everyone's expressions would appear to be unusually relaxed. However, everyone here clearly knew that, under this relaxed appearance, there was an incomparable cautiousness hidden. Everyone's nerves were stretched taut. It could be said that this was the first time that all the brothers had attacked with all their might. The first time that all of them had gathered together and used a prearranged formation to deal with an enemy together. An unusually strong enemy. Everyone raised their cultivation to the limit. They were ready to attack with all their might at any time. In the face of an unpredictable and powerful enemy, who would dare to be the slightest bit careless? If they were careless, not only would they be in danger of dying, but their brothers' lives would also be sent to this place. In a quiet place, Chu Yang and the others had already entered 200 miles into the depths of the dense forest. However, they still didn't discover any abnormalities. They couldn't sense any aura or traces of the enemy at all. However, that mysterious and strange pressure was getting heavier and heavier. It was precisely because of this heavy pressure that everyone's vigilance didn't decrease, but instead increased. They became even more cautious and careful to prevent any negligence. The dense forest is vast. Hiding a person is like hiding a needle in a haystack. Do you want to try another direction? Duke Yu said in a deep voice. No need. Mo Tianji was in the middle. He stood in front of Mo Qingwu and said slowly, such a strong and resolute existence will come and fight us as long as he detects our hostility. He won't avoid the provocation of a group of ants. Everyone nodded slowly. Another 15 miles of space receded under their feet. Suddenly, without any warning, right in front of everyone, where Chu Yang and Duke Yu were, a black smoke that was darker than ink suddenly rose. An unusually strong and indescribable evil aura suddenly spread out. The black smoke filled the air. It swept towards everyone with an unimaginable and astonishing speed. A faint shadow could be faintly seen in the midst of the black smoke. Cuckoo. A series of eerie and strange laughter rang out. 1,000 mountains and 10,000 waters spirit moon. Wuxia, who had the highest cultivation among the group, was the first to make a move. Suddenly, an incomparably bright moonlight appeared in the dark forest. Wuxia was also the first to pounce out. The moonlight instantly transformed into a sharp long sword and violently slashed out. In Chu Yang's group, Wuxia's cultivation was the highest. He had already reached the level of supreme martial artist. The enemy's strength was difficult to estimate. No matter what, Wuxia had to be the first to block and create a gap for the others to deal with the enemy and counterattack. Almost at the same time, Chu Yang didn't say a word. The Calamity Sword suddenly appeared in his hand. The moment it appeared, it had already violently exploded with bright light. It was like the most beautiful meteor, streaking across the sky. It followed closely behind Wuxia and sped away. Chapter 1578. As Chu Yang sped up, the Tribulation Sword technique, which he had yet to meet a worthy opponent, was unleashed like flowing water. He had only dashed 30 feet forward, but the power of the sword light had already reached a terrifying level. Tribulation Sword technique, fully unleashed. A single ray of cold light is enough to cover 10,000 feet. What harm is there in slaughtering the world? A sharp will buried deep will not change, gathering wind and clouds to become the emperor. A sword blade that has been famous since ancient times, whistling winds and clouds from the west to the east. The sun and moon are the lightning in my body. As both parties were already close to each other and their movement techniques were abnormally fast, Chu Yang could only unleash the power of the seventh superimposed move when he collided with the black smoke. The power of the sword move that he had been holding back exploded. In that instant, it was as if a small star had suddenly exploded in the sky. Compared to the cautiousness and nervousness of Chu Yang and the others, the heavenly fiend freak was so depressed that he almost vomited blood again. As soon as he appeared, he let out a few strange chuckles, which meant that he wanted to say a few opening words to show off his strength, intimidate them, and then calmly say, "Ha, you've come at the right time. I was just about to play a game with you." Of course, it was the game that cultivated the demonic nature, catalyzed the demonic heart, and then slowly extracted the heavenly demon's origin. Then he would calmly deal with this bunch of arrogant fellows, turning those who had a future in the demonic path into his servants, and turning the rest into nutrients to recover from his injuries. Who would have thought that just as he finished his chuckles and before he could say anything, the other party actually couldn't wait to make the first move, rushing over like a mute. This change was really unexpected. Were the martial arts rules of this world so straightforward? Facing an enemy that they didn't know, they didn't even think about it first? Fighting right away? Where did this fucking logic come from? What kind of plane was this? Not to mention anything else, even in the heavenly imperial court, even if they were mortal enemies, they had to say a few words first before going through the motions? Even if it was just a few words of abuse, they had to at least open their mouths. How could they be like this bunch of country bumpkins here, directly starting a fight without saying anything? This was too straightforward. What kind of logic was this? What's the matter? Just as the heavenly demon eccentric was feeling extremely gloomy, Wuxia's standard killer move, Myriad Mountains and Myriad Waters Moon Fairy, was about to reach him. An abnormally strong airflow. It was as if the bright moonlight was everywhere in the clear night sky, spreading out and descending from all directions. Not only was this move ferocious, it was also an indiscriminate attack that covered a wide area. This meant that Wuxia alone had completely sealed off all the paths that the heavenly demons could take to attack Chu Yang and the others. Roar! The heavenly devil eccentric let out a low roar. A large black hand suddenly stretched out. With a swoosh, the huge hand stretched out for 10 feet in a strange manner, then clenched its 5 fingers in the air. Tens of thousands of wisps of black gas were emitted, and with a pop sound, the moonlight that filled the sky instantly dissipated. Duke Yu, who had suffered a huge counterattack, groaned in pain. The black fog continued to spread out, like countless black snakes slithering in all directions. If one were to observe carefully, they would be able to see that the black snakes formed by the black fog were actually faintly following their tracks. Countless black snakes blocked off Duke Yu's path of advance and retreat, burying him within the black fog. In just one move, Duke Yu immediately fell into a passive state. The terror of the heavenly demons could be seen from this. It could be said that if Duke Yu was here alone, he would have fallen into a huge predicament where he could not escape. Even if he could use a strong move to break out of the encirclement, he would definitely have to pay a heavy price. However, Elder Yu wasn't alone. He had Chu Yang by his side. The tribulation sword light suddenly lit up like a blazing sun in the sky. Illuminating the universe, the tribulation sword's momentum was like a tidal wave, unceasing and unceasing. The sword light was like a thunderbolt, rushing past Duke Yu's side. It was just a single sword light, but it gave off a majestic feeling. It was fierce and domineering, as if it could destroy anything. However, the heavenly demon eccentric was not tough. It was soft, almost completely soft. Another large black hand formed from the black fog. Bang, bang, bang. In an extremely short period of time, it struck 3 times in a row. It struck the tribulation sword's sword light fiercely. Chu Yang only felt that his unparalleled divine sword seemed to have sunk into an extremely viscous water in an instant. The supreme sharpness was actually slowly being stuck. All the sword energy that had been accumulated to the extreme, the surging sword energy that was on the verge of exploding, could not burst out. Kill! Chu Yang made a prompt decision. With a loud shout, he injected all his cultivation into the tribulation sword without holding back. With a boom, the illusory black hand disappeared, and the black fog also suddenly scattered. The sword energy that was temporarily suppressed finally erupted to the extreme and completely exploded. A strange light flashed past the heavenly demon eccentric's eyes. He laughed and said, "Interesting." The heavenly demon's aura had always been fearless of any weapon in the world. Even if it was a heavenly weapon, it would not be able to cause any damage to the heavenly demon's aura if it was not accompanied by a special technique. But now, he actually felt that the sword light of this strange sword could actually restrain and faintly devour the heavenly demon's aura. Although the other party's cultivation was shallow and could not fully unleash the power of this sword, it did indeed give him an extremely dangerous feeling. The next moment, another large hand appeared out of thin air and actually grabbed the sword energy that had erupted. This time, the heavenly demon's strength was clearly twice as strong. The sharp sword energy that should have been invincible rushed left and right in his hand, bursting out in all directions, causing small holes to appear in his large palm. But this large hand actually still existed. But it was this little buffer of time. Gu Duxing also arrived. With a loud roar, his body and sword became one. His thin body flew into the air. The black dragon sword was like an ancient evil dragon, shaking its head and wagging its tail. It flashed with a dazzling brilliance as it broke through the air. At the same time, Dong Wuxiang's roar was like thunder. His burly body carried a rustling sound as he leaped into the air like a deity. His black saber was like a bolt of lightning as it slashed down fiercely. That strange man was holding onto Duke Yu's moonlight heavenly saber with one hand and Chu Yang's 7 tribulation swords with the other. He was still calm and composed. With a whistling sound, another 2 huge hands appeared out of thin air. One of them went up against Gu Duxing's man and sword unification, while the other went up against Dong Wuxiang's ferocious saber. His body actually had 4 hands. And the feeling he gave people, it was as if they were all real. Facing the joint attack of 4 great experts alone, he was actually still able to handle it with ease. Not only was he able to handle it with ease, the result of this clash of attacks was actually Gu Duxing coughed and his face flushed. Dong Wuxiang snorted and his eyes widened. The Sword King and Saber Emperor were both injured. The heavenly demon strange person fought against 4 alone. He actually had the upper hand. However, a brilliant and beautiful flower bloomed in front of Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang without any warning. At the same time, endless killing intent suddenly exploded. The dazzling beauty bloomed and slashed at the wrists of the two black hands. Viburnum flower. Xie Danqiong made his move. It was a beauty that was enough to mesmerize people to death. The heavenly demon strange person who seemed to have the upper hand also let out a muffled snort. The sound was extremely strange, like a broken string being pulled out of a broken tune. Then, another hand appeared out of the black fog. It grabbed the blooming viburnum flower in the palm of its hand. With a loud roar, it destroyed the flower. The infinitely beautiful viburnum flower was annihilated in an instant. 5 hands now. Xie Danqiong, who was destroyed, trembled in the air and almost fell to the ground. A dark red color appeared at the corner of his mouth. His cultivation was slightly inferior to Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang. Moreover, the viburnum flower was his life weapon. Now that the viburnum flower was broken, it meant that he was also injured. In terms of injuries, he was even more injured than Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang. Roar! There was a loud dragon roar. Golden light flashed in the forest, and a 5-clawed golden dragon suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Shaking its head and tail, it suddenly plunged into the black fog. It's actually a dragon? The heavenly demon's strange person's eyes flashed. It was only now that he was really interested in this sudden battle. It was as if night and day had suddenly changed at this moment. This time, it spat out a thick black gas from its mouth. Then, a big black hand rushed out from the black gas like a bolt of lightning. This new hand was huge, and it grabbed the golden dragon's neck and twisted it. Roar! There was a scream. The golden dragon image collapsed in an instant, revealing Ao Sheyun's figure. The domineering sword pierced into the black shadow's body. The heavenly demon's strange person looked up at the sky and let out a strange cry. Resisting the pain, the black hand exerted force. Ao Sheyun let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the golden light was faint, in the instant it stopped in the air, another blazing white light flashed. Rubadong let out a long roar, like the cry of a phoenix in the sky. A ball of flame burned fiercely. The nirvana flame reappeared in the world. Once the nirvana flame appeared, it had already protected all the brothers behind it. The flame rolled wildly, making a hissing sound, and burned forward. Where the flame passed, only a piece of white land was left. The heavenly demon strange person shouted, "There's still a phoenix?" The demonic aura surged and once again transformed into a big black hand that covered the sky, as if it wanted to slap the nirvana flame into the ground. The demonic aura surged, making hissing sounds. The heavenly demon strange person had already exerted all his strength. None of the opponents in front of him were too powerful, but each of them had their own characteristics and styles. The fairy could restrain the heavenly demon aura, and the calamity sword could devour the heavenly demon aura. These were all special first encounters. Gu Duxing's sharpness and Dong Wushang's dominance were also a kind of power that could threaten the heavenly demon's life. The blooming of the viburnum flower caused the heavenly demon aura to stir. This was the reason why the heavenly demon wanted to kill Xie Danqiong. And the power of the dragon and phoenix that followed could also dissolve the heavenly demon aura, and even directly eliminate it into nothingness. Everyone's power could actually cause harm to the heavenly demon. This was really too unexpected for this heavenly demon's strange person. There was actually such a thing in the world? The heavenly demon divine power that had always been unrivaled in the world actually met its nemesis in such a low-level plane. Chapter 1579. In a moment of carelessness, the heavenly demon was already injured. The heavenly demon eccentric immediately restrained his underestimation. The heavenly demon eccentric roared, full of heartache and anger, "Damn Phoenix, damn Nirvana flame." With a thought, another big hand came out. This one was more solid, and it grabbed down brazenly. The heavenly demon eccentric looked calm and confident on the surface, but he was already complaining in his heart, "I don't know where so many strange bastards came from. Their cultivation is nothing, but each of their attacks is so strange and unexpected. Do they want to die? The heavenly demon Qi was not afraid of any weapons, but it had little effect on the nirvana flame. Moreover, it was faintly restrained by the nirvana flame. However, Rui Butong's cultivation was still shallow. After a moment of stalemate, the demonic Qi continued to surge and roll, and it had already surrounded the nirvana flame. Water could extinguish fire, but fire could boil water. When the demonic Qi was strong enough, the nirvana flame would be suppressed instead. Awu! Luo Kadi leaped up and rushed into the nirvana flame without any regard for his own safety. His sword flashed with green light, and like lightning, it suddenly crossed the sky. He dashed left and right in the black fog and shouted, "Your second master Luo has a sword." Dog Ant. GMO also suddenly appeared from another direction and shouted, "What kind of monster is this? See how second master G will teach you a lesson." Finally, someone said something and he actually cursed. There are still two more. I'll fight. The heavenly demon eccentric, who had almost no energy left, was sad. He forced himself to urge his demonic Qi to surge again. Another two big black hands came out and faced Mo's and Luo Kudi's swords. All these happened almost at the same time. The heavenly demon eccentric had already summoned two black hands one after another, and they fought fiercely against this wave of attacks. There was no difference at all. Broken heart demon soul. Mo Tianji's eyes flashed. Suddenly, he raised his hand and the copper coin whizzed into the air. It was like a small sun, emitting whistling sounds in the wind. Its momentum was terrifying. Broken devil's soul? Hearing the name of this move, it was undoubtedly extremely tyrannical. The heavenly fiend eccentric was shocked. Could it be a technique that targeted heavenly demons? How could he dare to be careless? He forced himself to conjure up another hand and grabbed at the copper coin. However, before his hand could even touch the copper coin, it had already disappeared without a trace. Mo Tianji laughed. "Idiot, you really believed me when I said broken Mo Hun." The heavenly devil eccentric almost vomited blood, but taking advantage of this rare gap, Mo Tianji let out a long howl, "Blow through the heavenly lake. Only I can wield the purple jade flute." A purple light flashed in his palm, and a purple jade flute appeared out of thin air. It was as if a purple jade flute had materialized out of thin air. It rose high into the air, and issued a whistling sound as it flew out like a bolt of lightning. This is the killing move. The heavenly fiend eccentric saw that the enemy was not ordinary, but he still did not dare to be careless. The large hand suddenly changed direction and grabbed at the purple jade flute. "I was right to call you an idiot. Your killing move is a sword. Have you ever seen someone kill someone with a flute?" Mo Tianji once again mocked him mercilessly. The purple jade flute had unknowingly turned into a long sword shining with green light. The sword swept across the sky and actually cut off one of the large black hands. The heavenly fiend eccentric screamed and said angrily, "Despicable person. So your killing move is a sword." Mo hurriedly activated his demonic energy again. He used almost all of his strength to grab at Mo Tianji's sword. He hated the owner of the sword to the core. He was determined to grab the sword in his hand and immediately crush this despicable sword. It was really too despicable. "You're simply an idiot. You know clearly who is the enemy, and you dare to believe what I say." You actually fell for it again and again. The sword in Mo Tianji's hand flashed, and suddenly turned into a flute. "Actually, my killing move is really a flute. You believe everything I say. How can you be so honest?" The purple light flashed and suddenly whipped the back of the heavenly fiend eccentric's large black hand. The heavenly fiend eccentric misjudged again and was whipped until his demonic soul trembled. He roared angrily, and in anger, he actually didn't hesitate to explode his demonic soul with black energy to wrap around the purple jade flute. At this moment, the green light flashed and Mo Tianji's sword left his hand. With a schwa sound, it rushed into the black fog and entered the heavenly fiend eccentric's hazy body like lightning. It accurately hit the left side of his chest. It really is a sword. Mo Tianji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Are all heavenly fiends as brainless as you? If they were really like you, then I would be relaxed. However, there is no sense of accomplishment in playing with an idiot. The heavenly fiend eccentric spat out a mouthful of black blood. When the black blood touched the wind, it turned into black smoke and immediately dissipated. This time he was seriously injured. Half of it was because his vital parts were injured, but more of it was because he was angry. The heavenly fiend eccentric felt that he had never been so angry before. Mo's slim figure suddenly disappeared. In the heavenly fiend's black energy, her black demon fleeing shadow was even more effective. As the sword light flashed, 3 short swords rushed into the black fog and stabbed into the heavenly fiend eccentric's body at close range. Ah, how dare you! The heavenly fiend eccentric, who was injured again, screamed loudly. The demonic energy suddenly exploded and covered the sky. Bang! This palm actually hit Mo accurately. Darling, let out a soft groan and her whole body flew out. However, this heavenly fiend's attack had a far-reaching impact on the overall situation. This time, the demonic energy exploded and loosened a little. Chu Yang, Wei Gong, Gu Du Xing, Dong Wushang and the others immediately broke free from the demonic energy and flew away. However, at this moment, a red light suddenly flashed. It was like a dream, like an illusion. It was hazy and hazy. Mo Qingwu's graceful figure flew high up in the sky. In an instant, a red shadow danced between heaven and earth. She shouted in a delicate voice, "Heavenly dance, a dance between heaven and earth." In the dreamy and illusory dance, the Qingwu dream saber turned into dreamy lightning and slashed down continuously. After slashing into the demonic fog, the saber blade actually ignored the demonic energy as if it was nothing. 3 consecutive slashes cut through the demonic fog and black energy, penetrating and hitting the heavenly fiend eccentric's body. With a soft sound, half of his arm fell to the ground. It was the heavenly fiend eccentric's physical body that was injured and not the huge hand formed by the demonic energy that was broken. This attack was a real accident, a big accident. It was out of everyone's expectations, regardless of friend or foe. An earth-shattering scream sounded. What kind of technique is this? Damn it, how can there be such a technique and such a divine weapon in such a low-level attack plane? How can it be? This is impossible. A scream sounded. Chu Yang shouted fiercely, "Calamity sword!" Sword light surged rapidly. Swoosh, 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 the last 12 moves of Calamity Sword were all pushed out. The Calamity Sword's momentum was fully activated. A blade across the sky for 10,000 autumns, this road leads to the netherworld. It cuts through the mortal world. Everything ends where the blade is. Iron walls and copper walls never end. What more can one ask for in life? Clouds and clouds gather. You have no worries when I'm alive. The hidden blade hides the light until the night ends, strategizing for days and months. I'd rather hide my entire life. Instead, I've become a killing frenzy. Duke Wei, Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, Ao Xian, Xie Danqiong, Rui Badong. GMO and Luo Kadi rushed forward at the same time and attacked with all their might. Dong Wushang was heartbroken that his beloved wife was injured. He attacked crazily as if he didn't care about his life. The heavy black saber was like a mountain that kept smashing down violently. Mo Tianji floated back and panted heavily. Just now, using his intelligence to confuse the enemy and getting lucky was already his limit. At this moment, fighting with all his might was no longer suitable for Mo Tianji. Forcing himself to attack would only be superfluous and even a burden. Mo Qingwu's heavenly dance. It greatly restrained the demonic aura and extinguished its sharpness. Rui Butong's Nirvana flame also had the ability to burn and annihilate the demonic aura and reduce its sharpness. Chu Yang's Calamity Sword with all his might further dispersed the demonic aura. The others fought with all their might and wanted to finish the job in one go. Boom! Both sides fought head-on. The heavenly demon eccentric screamed in disbelief. Ridiculous! However, it was spewing out black blood all the way. Like a wisp of black smoke, half of it drilled into the ground while the other half rushed up into the sky. It suddenly escaped from the battle and twisted in the air. The two wisps of black smoke merged together again and condensed into dense smoke. Then, the black smoke slowly disappeared and finally revealed its true appearance. Ridiculous. It was indeed ridiculous. I, the great celestial demon, am such an awesome character. But in this low-level trash plane, I was actually injured to this extent by a dozen ants working together. On the ground, there was a broken limb wriggling and emitting faint black smoke. Ribadong took a big stride forward, and the nirvana flame in his palm burst out. He grabbed the severed hand, and the nirvana flame suddenly expanded, completely surrounding the severed hand. The blazing white flame burned fiercely. Ribadong was the most suitable person for this job. Against a demon without any follow-up power, it would only be annihilated by the nirvana flame. The broken hand twisted, struggled, and jumped in the phoenix flames. It was in pain as if it was alive, but the outcome was already decided. In the distance, the heavenly demon eccentric just watched quietly. His eyes revealed infinite anger and heartache, but strangely, he did not come forward to snatch it. In the end, the broken hand was completely roasted by the nirvana flame. It turned into black smoke and completely dissipated between heaven and earth. The only thing left behind was a strange smell that drifted in the air. It smelled like a roasted pig trotter. In the sky, the heavenly demon eccentric just watched everything that happened coldly. In an instant, the demonic aura on his body surged. The big hole in his chest and the various wounds on his body were rapidly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. The left hand that was chopped off previously was exposed like a piece of wood outside his sleeve. As the demonic aura continued to surge, a new palm slowly grew out of the broken arm. Wrist, palm, fingers. It was born out of thin air just like that. In the blink of an eye, it recovered to its original state. It moved its fingers and was actually nimble and free. It cackled strangely. Such a scene was simply inconceivable. It was unseen and unheard of. All the brothers were stunned for a moment. There was actually such a thing. Chapter 1580. Chu Yang and the others all had extremely grave expressions on their faces. They didn't slack off just because the extraterrestrial demon had retreated. The series of attacks just now could be said to be Mo Tianji's meticulous masterpiece. Every link, every possibility, and all the reactions of the other party were all within Mo Tianji's calculations and within this intricate plan. Link after link, the more they acted out, the stronger they became, and the connection was seamless. In the end, the scene of the brothers escaping at the same time and attacking at the same time even unleashed the greatest power and the most extreme power. Chu Yang was absolutely confident that even if it was Ning Tianya, the Dharma Supreme, or Wu Jueqing, facing such an attack alone, they would definitely be injured, and definitely not lightly. But although this monster in front of him was also injured, he didn't seem to care much about it. And he could even recover so quickly. Just this point alone was already superior to any expert in the Heavens continent. Even if there was still a certain gap between his strength and that of Big Sister Zi Sheqing back then, he was still superior to any other expert. This was Chu Yang's conclusion. The extraterrestrial demon monster's face was calm and unruffled, as if victory was in his hands and he was full of confidence. But in reality, his heart was aching so much that it was about to bleed. Damn it. This bunch of bastards actually had such a strange attack method. This round of attacks had completely scattered the nourishment of the extraterrestrial demon's origin source that he had just absorbed. Even after this serious injury, his body's condition was actually a little weaker than when he had just come down. This was really bad. Yesterday, he had just gone up to heaven, and today, he was beaten down to hell. What the fuck is this? Could it be that this trash plane is my nemesis? Or could it be that I will be bitten to death by a bunch of ants? The demon heart hesitated. Although his thoughts were running wild, his expression remained unchanged. Then he even let out a strange laugh. Hee, very impressive. I didn't expect that a dozen small ants could actually injure my Lord Extraterrestrial Demon a little. Although it's a little forced, it's already the limit, right? But it's still not bad, worthy of praise. GMO said in surprise, "You can speak human language? Just now, I thought it was an illusion. It turns out that you really can speak human language. A devil can speak human language. Or is it a devil? Is it a human devil or a devil?" Luo Kadi laughed when he heard this. Mo Tianji also laughed. He looked at the heavenly demon eccentric and said, "We have indeed reached our limit. However, did you really only suffer some minor injuries?" Of course, Mo Qingwu had to play along with her second brother. She pursed her lips and smiled. Demons from the outside. There's an old saying in our heavenly layer that a liar is not a good child. Even good children don't lie. Is it that you demons are not good children? Otherwise, why would you lie through your teeth? Hearing this, the heavenly fiend eccentric flew into a rage and shouted, "Who said this lord was boasting? This lord's skills are peerless, and I'm the only one in the world. How can my abilities be guessed by you bunch of ants?" "You're not lying? Are you sure you're not lying? It doesn't look like it. It really doesn't look like it. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like it." Everyone started to question and ridicule him. The heavenly fiend eccentric became even more enraged. The heavenly demon was even more humiliated and annoyed. As his mind turned, he actually suppressed his anger and said in a gentle voice, "This lord is broad-minded like the sea and disdains to lower myself to the level of a group of ants like you. However, you need to give me an explanation for your disrespect to this lord. This lord is benevolent and will not do anything to you. You can play a game with me as an apology." "What? Play a game?" The brothers almost fainted in unison. The heavenly clan was in the midst of a great battle. Everyone was ready to fight. However, this guy instantly changed the topic. He actually went so far away from the topic. In an instant he was going to apologize and play a game. Yes. Just play a game. A very simple game. Anyone will do. If you play with me, I won't fuss about your surprise attack just now. I'm very magnanimous, right? The heavenly fiend eccentric was very proud. He didn't feel embarrassed at all. It's a simple game of choice. If you pass my game, I can grant you a request. A request? Is it any request? Mo Tianji asked solemnly. Tribulation's mental fortitude was still very impressive. When the others were still a little dizzy and didn't know what to do, the master of calculation and manipulation had already started a new plan. It was unknown whether the heavenly fiend would fall into Tribulation's trap or fall into the heavenly fiend's trap. Of course, could it be that I would go back on my word to ants like you? The heavenly fiend eccentric raised his head and said arrogantly, "You must also understand that each of you has your own special skills. If you all come at me together, I won't be able to beat you since I'm still seriously injured. However, if I deliberately avoid your attacks and retreat, it's not difficult. You can't stay together forever. As long as one of you is alone, that person will be dead. This isn't a bluff, right? However, as long as you play a game with me and let me have my fill, then the grudge of this battle will be written off. Also, if any of you can beat me, I can grant you a request. Any request, any request." To be honest, the heavenly fiend eccentric's words were really irresistible. At this moment, the sky was suddenly filled with a mysterious power. In midair, the elder exclaimed in surprise, "Indeed, each of you has your own special skills. This battle has really given me a lot of surprises." "Master, what are you doing?" Shui Leihan was making hand seals with both hands and was emitting an unusually mysterious power. "Don't be so nervous. I just want to see how Chu Yang plays the game. And I believe that the real surprise is still to come. You're in for a treat today." Shui Leihan smiled slightly. This heavenly fiend game isn't fun. With just the few of them, the situation isn't very optimistic. The elder was anxious. Most importantly, once the heavenly fiend heart destruction is completed, the result will be difficult to reverse. That's the heavenly fiend's instincts, not the difference in strength. Once the result is confirmed, even if we attack again, we won't be able to change the final result. Shui Leihan said indifferently, Don't be so nervous. I don't want to say the same thing a third time. What you need to do now is just to watch quietly. Below, Chu Yang and Mo Tianji secretly exchanged glances. Both of them could see doubt and Jin Fan in each other's eyes. If the Heavenly Fiend intended to use playing a game to replace the decisive battle, then this game was definitely not to be taken lightly. The degree of danger might not be lower than the decisive battle. Indeed, as the Heavenly Fiend said, he had the ability to escape unscathed and could also hide in the dark and wait for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. However, as long as they didn't fall behind and left the fairy forest, the Heavenly Fiend would also be helpless against them. They might even have a chance of defeating the Heavenly Fiend if they fought together. However, if they allowed the Heavenly Fiend to control the situation, it would be a bad idea. The two of them looked at each other and made the same decision: reject. Mo Tianji was even prepared to make a hand gesture for everyone to use their ultimate skills and attack together to see if they could encircle the Heavenly Fiend. Even if they failed, they could at most retreat slowly and leave the fairy forest temporarily. They were confident that they could escape unscathed. Just as Mo Tianji was about to make a move, Chu Yang inexplicably felt as if his own spirit was about to flutter a little. He actually wanted to accept this kind of game. He was startled in his heart. Then he firmly shook his head and said, "No." Above his head, Xue Leihan's eyes were filled with extreme surprise. Then he increased the output of his soul again. The eyes of the elder at the side almost popped out of their sockets. The Lord had already released his own soul power. Obviously, he wanted to facilitate this game. However, he didn't expect that this Calamity Sword Master Chu Yang could actually resist the Lord's method. This was simply inconceivable. Not to mention a low-level realm like the heavens, even in the heavens' imperial court, there were so many geniuses from superclans who couldn't resist any bit of Xue Leihan's soul power. No one could. Then, how did this Chu Yang do it? Mo Tianji and the others were already prepared. Was the Heavenly Fiend's game fun? Falling into the other party's trap and being led by the other party was absolutely unacceptable. Then they would let their fists do the talking. The brothers received Mo Tianji's hand gesture and secretly accumulated their power. They were only waiting for Chu Yang to say, "No," before they attacked again. Chu Yang suddenly opened his mouth. What he said shocked everyone. They almost broke down together. "Okay, I'll play a game with you. I want to see how simple this so-called simple choice game is and how to choose." Mo Tianji suddenly turned his head. "Chu Yang?" Chu Yang calmed himself down and smiled bitterly in his heart. Actually, he had already vaguely sensed something. Someone was probably exerting pressure on him, but this person was definitely not the Heavenly Fiend in front of him. At first, he also suspected that the Heavenly Fiend had used some kind of bewitching technique on him to lure him into playing the game. Naturally, he tried his best to resist the temptation. However, that external force was really too strong. In the end, he even lost control of himself and actually agreed to play the game. However, Chu Yang also confirmed another thing because of this. There was another expert present, and this expert's strength was boundless. Not to mention his brothers, even the Heavenly Fiend in front of him was far from being able to match him. But this kind of thing couldn't be said clearly. If he really said that someone was controlling him, Mo Tianji and the others would definitely fight it out with that person. Since the other party had such unfathomable and terrifying strength, how could they be a match for him? Once there was a conflict, they would only be courting death. Since there was no way to resist, then let me face it. So, Chu Yang chose to face the danger alone. He would rather take the risk alone than drag everyone back to their hometown. Chapter 1581. Although it was a risky game, Chu Yang had a vague guess in his heart. This person in the dark might not be an enemy. If this person was an enemy, he could have just killed Chu Yang directly. There was no need to go through so much trouble to be mysterious. But now, this was the outcome. Chu Yang's mind turned quickly, and he had a flash of inspiration. Could it be Xue Leihan, or someone on Xue Leihan's side? If that was the case, then he would definitely not be in danger. But that might not be the case for Gu Duxing and the others. So, Chu Yang immediately announced that he would be participating in the game alone. Since the situation had been determined, then he would lock the situation in the way that was most beneficial to him. A crisis might be a turning point. Mo Tianji took a deep breath. He fixed his gaze on Chu Yang for a long while. He keenly captured the trace of helplessness and urgency in Chu Yang's eyes. He couldn't help but be startled. But he immediately calmed down and said, "It's a good thing that we don't have to fight and kill. We brothers will wait for boss's triumphant return." Chu Yang smiled and nodded. He let go of Mo Qingwu's small hand and took a step forward. The strange man didn't notice anything unusual. He laughed strangely and said, "Good courage. Since that's the case, then take 10 steps forward." In the strange man's mind, the conditions he offered were so good. How could the other party refuse? It was worth it to be able to get rid of an invincible enemy like himself without taking any risks. Chu Yang smiled and walked out in large strides. He didn't hesitate or waver in the slightest. Whether it was voluntary or forced, since he had decided, then he would go forward bravely. Behind him, Mo Qingwu's small hands were tightly twisted together, her knuckles turning white. Mo Tianji's shoulders sank slightly. He patted his sister's shoulder lightly and said, "Don't worry. Chu Yang is confident. You've seen him before. He didn't act only when he was fully prepared." Mo Qingwu nodded in a daze. At this moment, she was so worried that she didn't even listen to Mo Tianji's comforting words. The heavenly devil freak let out a strange laugh. He raised his hands, and a thick black fog sprayed out, shrouding Chu Yang within it. "My lord, it's not that I'm being long-winded, but if you change your mind now, it's not too late. Although the heavenly demon heart crushes isn't a high-level demonic art, it's still a trick of the heavenly demon's origin. Once it succeeds, it's irreversible." The old man in the sky looked at the rising demonic fog and said worriedly, "Only with a stable spirituality can one not be afraid of external demons. One must at least be at the earth level." This Chu Yang's achievements are not bad, but he is only at the Xian level. He is far from reaching the level of an earth-level spirituality. Everyone's heart has a demonic nature. Under the earth level, it is difficult to turn back from it. If one cannot suppress it, it is too risky. There's no need to take risks. Why don't we? Xue Leihan said indifferently, "It's all right. I believe in Chu Yang. Prime Minister, in this world, every advantage comes with a disadvantage. It's a blessing for cultivators to have a stable spirituality so that they won't have to be afraid of being attacked by external demons. But once the spirituality is stable, you'll lose the chance to train your spirituality. This would be a great regret for the future walk of the heavenly Tao. Moreover, it is very likely to lead to a premature end. Now that Chu Yang has accepted the heavenly demon's training at the Xian level, he will try the most important and dangerous stage of the walk of the heavenly Tao in advance after reaching the heaven level. As long as he passes it, there will naturally be great benefits. Compared to each other, which is more important, you should know clearly, Prime Minister." The old man sighed and said no more. But in his heart he thought, which is more important? There will only be great benefits if he passes it. If he doesn't pass it, then it's just a fart Qihang Rumes. To be able to pass the heavenly demon's training and succeed at the Xian level. How many people are there in the entire Heaven Imperial Court? In the past, in order to fight against the heavenly demons, the Heaven Imperial Court had also carried out similar heavenly demons training. However, for 3 consecutive years, more than 30,000 of the geniuses nurtured by the various clans and sects had their demonic nature forced out. They had no choice but to kill them immediately to eliminate the hidden dangers, causing the various clans to retaliate fiercely. More than 30,000 people, not many of them were so-called heroes, geniuses, and geniuses. But was there any exception? Since then, no one in the entire Heaven Imperial Court did that again. Why are you so sure that Chu Yang can pass it? Can you give me a reason that makes me feel at ease? Can you? Energy? Wood, energy. This was really puzzling. To be honest, I have another motive. I really want to know, among those dazzling choices, how will Chu Yang choose? How will he give up? Shui Leihan smiled. The old man stared at him, completely speechless for a moment. He didn't expect that his lord actually had such curiosity, and it was towards such a weak martial artist. Trash martial artist. Even if he was a trash martial artist, with Chu Yang's current cultivation, in front of these two people, he could only be described as a trash martial artist. There were countless geniuses in the Heaven Imperial Court. Even those who were stronger and more talented than Chu Yang in front of him were also numerous, perhaps even innumerable. But his lord had never been interested in any of the young people. What was going on today? Little did he know that Shui Leihan was also secretly thinking, I really want to see what's so strange about this Chu Yang that he actually has the qualifications to become the last generation's Calamity Sword Master and bear the attention of those two mighty people. What was the reason? What was the reason? What was the reason? What was so different about him? Today was a rare opportunity, of course. He had to take a good look. Demonic array. Seeing that Chu Yang had entered the realm of the game and was completely enveloped by the entire battle array, the heavenly devil eccentric released his divine sense to probe the origin of Chu Yang's temperament. He was immediately overjoyed. The depth of this Chu Yang's origin is far beyond that of the previous guy. I've struck it rich this time. If he could induce the heavenly devil's origin, this, at least, would allow Elder to recover more than 15% of his cultivation. I'm rich this time. But this guy was so young, how could he have such a strong mental strength? Just as the heavenly demon was puzzled, he heard Chu Yang ask, Why haven't you started? Are you impatient? This lord inadvertently let you live a little longer, but you're getting impatient. The game has already begun, Kik. The heavenly demon hurriedly woke up from his thoughts and let out a burst of uncontrollable laughter of excitement. Little, you're the one who delivered yourself to me. If it were a few days ago, I really wouldn't have much confidence in dealing with an ordinary person like you. But now, I already have a heavenly devil's origin in my hands. Dealing with an ordinary person like you who isn't even considered a fledgling demon is no longer difficult. Start. The game is like this. Choices. The heavenly devil eccentric began to explain the rules of the game. At most, you can only choose one, said the heavenly devil eccentric. Then, the demonic array was immediately activated. If Chu Yang had seen the Dharma Supreme and Yi Zue's choices before, he would definitely realize that the time taken for the heavenly devil array to set up now was more than twice as short as before. In other words, the power of the demonic array now was more than twice as strong as what Yi Zue had experienced. It was even more dangerous and unpredictable. Chu Yang nodded. Looking at the 50 items spinning in front of him, his gaze was slightly out of focus. He was also rather amazed. The 50 items included almost all the desires of the human heart. All the dreams in life were contained here, regardless of whether it was for good or evil. After the heavenly devil eccentric urged him several times, Chu Yang finally raised his finger and began to choose. Golden light flashed before his eyes. Item by item slowly slid past, each item able to tug at one's heartstrings. Lifelong companions. After Chu Yang began to choose, these 4 words suddenly appeared before his eyes. Chu Yang's eyes lit up. His fingers moved like the wind, and the first item he chose was this item. In the world of mortals, if I could accompany my beloved for life, my life would not be in vain. Husband and wife in youth, companionship in old age. This was also what Chu Yang valued the most. The regrets of his previous life filled Chu Yang with an obsession towards the item of lifelong companions. To grow old together and accompany for life. Mo Qinggu, Tai Butin. He wondered what these girls would be like when they grew old. Chu Yang was fascinated. Then lifelong companions. The second item. Without hesitation, Chu Yang clicked on it immediately. My brothers, we share joys and sorrows, honor and disgrace. We go through mountains of blades and seas of fire together. We go through life and death together. We go to hell together. Chu Yang clicked on it. Looking at the 3 shining words lifelong companions, Chu Yang murmured, If I become a legend one day, I hope that all of you will be part of my legend. If all of you become legends one day, I hope that all of you will be part of my legend. I will not forget the vow we made in the past. Then it was his parents' clan. The third item. His father, his mother, created his own people. Although Chu Yang didn't spend much time with his parents because of his wandering life, his admiration for his parents wasn't inferior to other people's. Thinking of his mother Yang Ruolan's gentle and loving gaze, Chu Yang's heart felt warm. Even if the whole world was unreliable, his parents would always be reliable. No matter what his son did, his parents would always be tolerant. For the fourth item, Chu Yang clicked on blood brothers. There were still a few blood brothers in the younger generation of the Chu clan. Chu Yang sincerely hoped that these brothers could live in harmony. Then, for the fifth item, Chu Yang clicked on invincible in the world. This was the dream of everyone in the martial world, even ordinary people, as long as one was a man. Invincible in the world is already good enough. That I, the unique and righteous, is simply superfluous. If I, the unique and righteous, then what will happen to my parents and brothers? Will they all become my subordinates? Chu Yang sneered and clicked on all life in the world. The first item. I have never been a savior. I don't have such a great heart. But I grew up in this world. If all life in this world dies, then I will die too. My brothers, sisters, friends, brothers, and all my relatives will also die. Moreover, this world is still full of kindness. After all, there are still many kind-hearted people. If I have the ability, what's the harm in saving them? Glory, splendor, and wealth are not necessary. With power, would I still be afraid of not having it? However, it is necessary to command the world. For some things, such as a battle with the extraterrestrial demons in the future, it will not work without enough power. That is indeed necessary. Chapter 1582. So far, he had already chosen 7 options. Looking at the remaining options, Chu Yang thought, there's still immortality, but if I'm the only one who's immortal, a few hundred years or a few thousand years later, it'll be a nightmare. If that's really the case, I'd rather die with everyone. What a useless option. After hesitating for a while, he actually didn't choose. Then he clicked on the next option, repay kindness and revenge. In life, a real man should repay kindness and revenge as he pleases. When it's time to draw the sword, I'll draw the sword. Chu Yang thought of the divination where Xue Leihan had transformed into an old man and smiled in his heart. A sword across the world. Kill those who should be killed, don't make things difficult for them. The sea of blood has its own path of light. Not bad. As for the last option, Chu Yang didn't hesitate anymore and directly clicked on carefree for a lifetime. As a person, if possible, his greatest wish is to be carefree for a lifetime. If there are still so many restrictions, then it's really meaningless. Chu Yang laughed and said, I'm done choosing. Lifelong companions, life and death brothers, parents, blood brothers, invincible in the world, commanding the world, repaying kindness and revenge as he pleases, carefree for a lifetime. Not bad. Not a bad choice. There was a hint of approval in the strange and cold voice of the heavenly demon, but also a hint of joy. Joy came from the bottom of his heart. With Chu Yang's choice, the heavenly demon felt that his chances of demonizing Chu Yang had increased by a few notches. You're very impressive, choosing the brighter side of human nature. This is good too. In this case, I'll be able to reach the bottom line in your heart after a few rounds. It's even more beneficial for awakening the demon heart and summoning the heavenly demon's origin. The heavenly demon was obviously more confident in winning this game and taking down Chu Yang. Even if it wasn't 100% certain, it was very close. Since you're done choosing, why don't you take a break and then we'll move on to the next round of the game. The heavenly demon grinned and persuaded him in a seemingly kind manner. A short break was necessary. Let these things stay in your mind for a while longer and savor the wonderful taste. When you give up later, the torture you'll suffer will be relatively greater. Chu Yang didn't reject the heavenly demon's kind advice. He really felt and savored it with great interest. When I reach the top, My brothers will be by my side, looking down on the world with me. With a single palm, the wind and clouds swallowed the sun and moon. To live a carefree life. In my life, no matter if it was hard times or when I was at the peak of success, I would always have a lifelong partner who would passionately accompany me, drunk on a beauty's lap, awake to control the world's power. Somewhere, my parents, brothers, and family are living a happy life, carefree and carefree. This was life, a perfect life. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes. Now, let's proceed to the final stage of the game. You must abandon the item you just chose, or else, you'll die. The heavenly demon eccentric narrowed his eyes as he looked at Chu Yang, intoxicated. Damn it, why are you so invested? That's great. Start feeling the pain, little one. Abandon one? Chu Yang narrowed his eyes and asked lazily, can you not abandon it? The heavenly fiend eccentric was exasperated. Did you not understand what I said? These were the rules of the game. If you don't, then die. Chu Yang pondered for a moment and said, it's that serious. Since that's the case, I'll remove the carefree title. After all, no matter who you are, it's impossible for you to be free and unfettered for your entire life. The so-called free and unfettered life also has its limits. Let's remove this. Okay, next, remove one more item. If you don't choose, you'll still die. Remove commanding the world. Tiring. Another one. Remove all living beings. Annoying. Chu Yang's choice was exceptionally fast, so fast that he didn't give the heavenly demon any time to count the number of people. As if he didn't think at all, he quickly made his choice without hesitation. Remove one more item. I'm not going. The heavenly demon was stunned. I must go. Otherwise, I'll die. If I remove it just because you say so, how shameful would I be? This isn't about the noodles. Even if it's not about the noodles, I won't go. All the more I won't go. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Besides, who do you think you are? If you say it's not about the noodles, then it's not about the noodles? In my opinion, this is precisely the noodles. You've already agreed to play the game. How can you go back on your word? The heavenly demon was so angry that he rolled his eyes. Fuck, how many tens of thousands of years had it been? This was the first time it had encountered such a troublesome person. Halfway through the game, he actually stopped? What was this? Noodles? At such a time, this guy could actually consider such a thing. He was really a weirdo. I'm not going back on my word. Aren't we playing? Chu Yang was unperturbed. You play yours, I play mine. Let's play together. No. These are the rules of the game. We have to play together. We have to go one item at a time. The heavenly demon panted heavily, having the urge to vomit blood. Those are your rules, not mine. Chu Yang didn't budge an inch. Your rules are nothing in my eyes. The heavenly demon was so angry that all the hair on his head stood up. You're not going? You'll remove it. He grinned hideously. Little one, you're forcing me to do this. The next moment, the demonic aura in this dark space suddenly surged rapidly. The heavenly demon array was the heavenly demon's home ground. Huh. You want to use violence? Fuck, didn't you say we were playing a game? Why did you start playing this? This is a game. The heavenly demon grinned hideously. I've never seen such a shameless person like you. Chu Yang scolded. This sentence almost caused the heavenly demon to break down. Who's the shameless one here? You've already reached the peak of shamelessness, yet you still dare to scold others for being shameless? At this moment, Chu Yang's gaze froze. He seemed to feel that something was wrong. The next moment, he suddenly felt an intense pain in his head. He gritted his teeth and sneered. He said to the heavenly demon word by word, although I haven't finished playing this game, I've already understood the true meaning of this game. You heavenly demons use this method to let people choose first, let people get first, let people first taste the pleasure of getting first, and then deliberately set the items so that the numbers are relatively larger. Behind the wonderful taste, the pain is also relatively more terrifying. Then you force people to abandon. A person would of course abandon the things that have nothing to do with him or those that have little to do with him. But as the process progresses, the pressure gradually increases and he can't take it anymore. He will inadvertently abandon some of the important things in his life. Finally, out of human self-defense, he will make a subconscious choice. And at that step, it's the beginning of true depravity. Slowly, like a river bursting its banks, once it started, it can't be stopped. He will also hand over his soul and become the same kind as you heavenly demons. Good method. Really good method. Chu Yang roared, but old chalk is Chu Yang. The heavenly demon strange person laughed sinisterly. Chu Yang? So what if he's Chu Yang? The heavenly demon strange person really didn't think much of Chu Yang. Although Chu Yang's nature was astonishing, his cultivation was not as high as the Dharma Supremes, and his experience naturally couldn't be compared to the Dharma Supreme who had lived for tens of thousands of years. The heavenly demon strange person didn't believe that Chu Yang had any amazing method to turn the tables. Chu Yang said sternly, "There are some things that Chu Yang would rather die than give up. You've lost this game. This isn't a game for me alone. This is a game for the two of us. No, a battle. And you have already lost this battle." The heavenly demon strange person flew into a rage. "Nonsense. Let's see who will lose. If you don't choose, then die." Suddenly, he released all of his consciousness. Demonic aura spread out fiercely. In an instant, dense smoke rose, and as if it had substance, it crazily burrowed into Chu Yang's brain. Murderous intent. This time, he really had the intention to kill. This person actually knew the true meaning of the game. He was actually able to deduce that this game was actually a game for the two of them. One attacked, the other defended. This was equivalent to a battle of beliefs. As long as the one who made the choice continued to make the choice, he would lose. But if he could persist and guard his heart, the heavenly demon would lose. This was also the real reason why Yizue won without making a choice that day. As the saying went, if one didn't find it strange, the strange would be defeated. Another important reason was that Chu Yang was ultimately not an embryonic demon who had cultivated demonic arts. This was something that Yizue couldn't compare to back then. Right now, Chu Yang's sea of consciousness was really boiling like a boiling pot. The indescribable pain assaulted Chu Yang, causing him to be on the verge of collapse. But Chu Yang clenched his teeth tightly and refused to retreat a single step. The heavenly demon howled, letting out a sound that sounded like the weeping of ghosts and the weeping of gods. A ferocious divine spirit energy rushed into Chu Yang's sea of consciousness with irresistible force. In the demonic array, I can go wherever I want. I can change you fundamentally. This is the benefit of having the heavenly demon's origin. If I hadn't obtained a portion of the heavenly demon's origin before this, I really wouldn't be able to do anything to you right now. But now, I can only say that you're very unlucky. Before you came, I happened to obtain a portion of the most superior heavenly demon's origin in this plane. What a timely reign. With a single thought, a human demon could become a demon and a human. The flip of a thought could either transcend beyond the divine transformation stage or be consigned to eternal damnation. Chu Yang also didn't know that although this heavenly demon array was extremely dangerous, it was also a great test. If he could make it through, he would gain endless benefits in this lifetime. Although he didn't know, he still clenched his teeth and refused to budge an inch. I've already made up for the regrets in my previous life, and you actually want me to create new regrets? Dream on. Chu Yang couldn't speak right now. If he could, he would have spat on this guy's face and cursed, "Go fuck yourself." But right at this moment when the demonic aura was boiling wildly, Chu Yang's mental energy that was almost unrivaled in the heavenly continent finally started to really operate. It wasn't just operating, it was actually condensing a step further. Chu Yang's divine sense cultivation was still stuck at the supreme grade. If it was an ordinary person, their mental energy cultivation, according to common sense, would roughly be at that level. Even if it was because of the uniqueness of the martial technique, it could surpass the ordinary limits, but the effect of the increase was still limited. But don't forget, Chu Yang was reborn twice. Today, I was hit by a bolt from the blue. In the afternoon, just as I woke up, my wife came in with a very nervous expression and said, "There's something difficult to do." I asked, "What's the matter?" My wife said, "Our car broke the rules." I immediately smiled. I thought it was a big deal. Isn't it just a deduction of points? The fine won't be too much, just pay attention in the future. My wife cried. "It's not just a little." I was startled. "How many times?" My wife said timidly, "It's not just a few times. It's dozens of times. Also, the traffic laws have changed, finding a person won't work. The deduction of points can only be done 3 times. I was dumbfounded. Dozens of times? How many points is this? How much is it? My wife said, "It's a total of 14 points. I immediately vomited blood and fainted. I shouted, "Fuck, how many days have you been driving? 14 points? A driver's license is only 12 points. What should I do?" My wife said weakly, "It's precisely because I don't know what to do that I'm looking for you." I slammed my head on the keyboard. Oh my God, oh my God. 14 points, I'll do this again this afternoon. I called my comrade at the Gongji Security Bureau and told him about this matter. My comrade said, "Easy. How many times did you break the rules?" "I'll do it." I said, "Not many, just a little more points, 14 points." My comrade then became mute. After a while, he shouted, "Replace your prodigal wife." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At the moment, there was nothing I could do. I went to check. They were all speeding in the same place, and they didn't follow the rules when making turns. When I asked, my wife widened her eyes and said, "How is that possible?" I sighed helplessly. The whole of Laiwu knows that there's a police car that stops at the bottom of the big hill every day to test for speeding, but you actually exceeded the speed limit at the same place 20 times. I've already lectured my wife for a few hours. What should I do now? If I had known, I would have driven. Although my skills are not good, at least. I wouldn't have exceeded the speed limit. Can't I drive as fast as a bull? Chapter 1583. Chu Yang's consciousness power encompassed 2 lifetimes. Naturally, it was different from ordinary people. Previously, it didn't show its power because there was a gap between his 2 lifetimes consciousness, a flaw. That gap was Jianghu. If it couldn't be resolved, the 2 lifetimes consciousness wouldn't be able to fuse together. At most, they could only work together against external forces. But now, not only had Jianghu found it, she had also made up for the regrets of her previous life. The gap between the 2 lifetimes consciousness had been filled. The 2 lifetimes consciousness power naturally blended together perfectly and even improved greatly. In addition, Chu Yang had coincidentally devoured the divine soul of the first Tribulation Sword Master at the Lake of Despair. His divine soul was unparalleled in the Chongtian continent, surpassing both ancient and modern times. It was just that the soul power couldn't be used in this heavenly layer continent. There was almost no chance to train the soul power. No matter how strong the soul power was, it couldn't be used. It was like Chu Yang had a mountain of gold, but there was no room for him to spend it. Perhaps, Chu Yang had an invincible divine technique. As long as he used it, he would be invincible in the world. But Chu Yang didn't have the opportunity to use this divine technique. He had obtained something, but had no use for it. The result was that it was like a pile of loose sand in Chu Yang's body. At this moment, the heavenly demon's tyrannical spirit power, soul power, and willpower had forcefully rushed in without any warning. This was something that no one could tolerate. In such a situation, there were usually only 2 outcomes. 1, he would be controlled by the heavenly demon and his own consciousness would dissipate. 2, he would completely expel the external enemy and restore his mind to a clear sky, protecting his sovereignty. This was a matter of life and death. At this critical juncture, Chu Yang's powerful soul power was fully activated for the first time. At the beginning, Chu Yang's divine soul had no room to resist the attack of the heavenly demon's exceptionally pure heavenly demon's divine soul source. Almost at the moment of contact, Chu Yang's divine soul was utterly defeated. His entire divine soul was dangerously close to collapse. This collapse almost made Chu Yang break down completely and become a complete idiot. This was a sign that his soul was about to be completely destroyed. However, as the saying goes, where there is oppression, there is resistance. At this moment, Chu Yang had fallen into an absolute disadvantage. But his stubborn heart hadn't reduced in the slightest. He didn't know how to use his spiritual power to fight against the enemy in his sea of consciousness. However, he clearly knew one thing, and that was to resist. He had to use all his strength, all his possibilities, all his methods, and all his means to resist the enemy. With this thought, life was restored. Whatever the enemy charged at him, he would charge back at them the same way. In Chu Yang's sea of consciousness, gradually, sporadic resistance began to appear. However, this sporadic resistance was like a drop in the bucket in the face of the heavenly demon's immense pressure. It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. It could not even withstand a single blow. But after all, he had the consciousness to resist and counterattack. A single spark may not be able to start a prairie fire. The heavenly demon, who felt that victory was within his grasp, revealed a cruel smile. He felt that he had completely crushed the young man in front of him, and he felt extremely comfortable. The feeling of having everything within his control and being able to freely trample on, play with, and toy with his opponent was simply too wonderful. It was simply wonderful to the point he couldn't bear to end this game. It was completely out of his expectations. This guy's divine soul power was actually so strong. Even compared to his own, it was not inferior. But under the effect of his heavenly demon's power, he was actually unable to resist at all. He was completely at his own mercy. This was really a benefit bestowed by the demon lord. This level of spiritual energy was so pure that it had reached a certain level. Furthermore, it had not been used at all. How rare was this? Right now, there was only one last step to make the consciousness of the person in front of him dissipate. At that time, all of this will be mine. It's mine. Ha! The heavenly demon stepped up his movements, intending to extinguish the last spark from Chu Yang. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. The originally extremely limited sporadic resistance suddenly intensified. Moreover, there were even more resistance forces gathering from all directions. They actually turned around and surrounded the heavenly demon's divine soul power. It formed a reverse encirclement. This change in form was like an extremely huge mountain suddenly encountering the vicissitudes of life. The land at the foot of the mountain turned into the sea, and the mountain was completely surrounded by the sea. In the beginning, the mountain was surrounded by the sea, and the sea seemed to have the power to surround it. But the sea did not attack. In fact, it could not cause any substantial damage to the mountain. It only had the effect of trapping it. If one really wanted to damage the mountain, one could only rely on years of erosion and polishing. But the heavenly demon was not the mountain. The mountain may not be able to move, and could only be eroded by the sea, but the heavenly demon could move. It could even move on a large scale, to the extreme of its ability. Of course, Chu Yang's consciousness was also different from the seawater. The seawater could not attack or learn. It could only cycle over and over again, repeating its habitual actions. Although Chu Yang's divine soul could not attack, it could learn. And it could learn very quickly. It was so fast that it could scare people to death. Yes, it was so fast that it could scare a demon to death. Feeling the heavenly demon moving freely left and right, Chu Yang's thoughts flashed, as if he had figured out something, and had some enlightenment. Enduring the intense pain in his head, which felt like it was about to explode, Chu Yang began to try to control his own divine soul for the first time. It was important for people to save themselves, to constantly strive for self-improvement, and to have an inextinguishable life force. This process was undoubtedly extremely painful. Moreover, Chu Yang could even feel that even if all the torture in the world were to be concentrated on a person's body at the same time, it might not be as painful as he was at this moment. But Chu Yang still gritted his teeth and persevered. Once he gave up, it was equivalent to giving up on himself, giving up on his lover, giving up on his life. He must not give up. If you were to use this move on others, you might not be able to endure it. But it is wrong to use it on me. Very wrong. 'Cause I have been through hundreds of battles and have been through hundreds of battles. Back then, when Zi Xiecheng used torture on me, she would do it more than 10 times a day. Although this move of yours is stronger than that, but it is only SOSO. The corners of Chu Yang's mouth curled up into a sneer even in such a bad situation. Counterattack. Counterattack. Again and again. Wave after wave of attacks, wave after wave of counterattacks came. The heavenly demon finally realized that something was wrong. At first, it thought that the other party's counterattack was just a last-ditch effort before death. But in the end, it was more and more powerful each time? What was going on? How was this still a last-ditch effort? It was simply a large-scale counterattack with each wave stronger than the previous one. Didn't this bastard not know how to condense his divine soul? How could it be? Sensing it carefully, the heavenly demon almost vomited blood. The frequency of the other party's movements was exactly the same as what it had done just now. There was no difference at all. What did this mean? This meant that under such circumstances, this young man was actually learning from the old thief, using the old tricks to fight and counterattack. Realizing this, the heavenly demon almost broke down. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Wasn't this guy a little too weird? This Lord Heavenly Demon is here to destroy this fellow's divine sense, not to be his freaking teacher. Sensing the other party's counterattack, the Heavenly Demon was filled with a feeling of extreme depression. Suddenly, it raged even more violently. It didn't want to destroy, but wanted to make a mess. Let's see how you can learn and imitate me. Let's see how you can learn and imitate me. Chu Yang only felt that his pain had doubled again after a certain moment. If it was 1,000 cuts just now, it would be 2,000 cuts now. Chu Yang roared. Although he was in so much pain that he wanted to die, his mind was clear. On the contrary, due to the intense pain, his mind was incomparably clear. He carefully observed all of his opponent's movements, big and small, without missing a single detail. Once again, he imitated him and turned the world upside down. You want to turn my world upside down? I will also turn your world upside down. A strict teacher produces a fine student. This sentence was not wrong at all. Under the heavenly demon's life-threatening attacks, Minister Chu's improvement could be described as leaps and bounds. The heavenly demon roared angrily. Damn it. This time, it was really lifting a rock and smashing it on its own feet. Although it was the destruction it created, it was the original version, slightly more powerful than the other party's pirated version. But this was the other party's home ground after all. Originally, it was a complete body of divine soul power. With both sides stirring vigorously at the same time, it was forcefully stirred into 3 pieces. It became a battle of their own. Fuck you, evil old granny. This was a very vicious curse of the Celestial Demon clan. Now, this Lord Celestial Demon had cursed without hesitation. Immediately, he did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly gave up on causing trouble. The 3 parts of divine soul power broke through the encirclement and gathered together, hoping to be reunited. After all, after being separated, the power was not small. This time, Chu Yang was very smart. He did not follow suit. Instead, he tried his best to not let the 3 parts of divine soul power gather together. He thought of all ways to surround and intercept them. Whatever the enemy wants, I will not allow it. Not letting the enemy achieve their goal was undoubtedly the current highest strategy. At this moment, the heavenly demon actually felt that he was somewhat helpless. How could this be? Who would have thought that in less than half a cup of tea's time, he could actually teach such an outstanding disciple? This was really like seeing a ghost. Even a heavenly layer earth-level person's divine soul power could not be compared to this bastard's. Even the strongest genius of the heavenly demon clan could not be faster than this kid. The heavenly demon finally felt some fear. Because he suddenly realized that after his divine soul power was unexpectedly divided into 3 parts, there was a tendency to gradually shrink. It was even possible that it would eventually be annihilated. Chapter 1584. The heavenly demon was really scared out of his wits this time. Oh my demon ancestor! It actually devoured the divine soul. This was a terrifying power that hadn't appeared in a long time. Oh, why did it appear in such a low-level, trashy plane, on such an ant? And I even encountered it? The most tragic thing was that I took the initiative to enter a sea of consciousness that could devour the divine soul. Furthermore, even the way the other party attacked him was something that he had learned from him. What's the matter with this evil demon? Oh my God, hurry up and escape. Escape is the most important thing now. If I don't escape, my divine soul will be destroyed. The heavenly demon didn't want to force Chu Yang to make any choice now, because, if he continued to force him, he would really be forced to his death. His divine soul would be destroyed and he would be doomed eternally. What the fuck? So, the heavenly demon started to break out desperately. However, in this way, the heavenly demon's divine soul still had an absolute advantage in terms of layout. Under such a powerful shock, Chu Yang's divine soul world was almost destroyed instantly. Chu Yang was shocked. He didn't know that this was just a way for the heavenly demon to break out and escape. Instead, he thought that the heavenly demon finally took out his trump card, intending to kill him in one fell swoop. In a moment of desperation, he actually used all his divine soul power without reservation. Even if his divine soul was destroyed, I must suppress him, completely suppress him. Suppress him. Suppress him. Suppress him. Suppress him. Ah! Chu Yang roared madly in his heart. He still imitated the heavenly demon's actions at this moment. He also flipped over and over, twisting and tumbling, opposing tit for tat, refusing to yield an inch. However, the heavenly demon's purpose was to escape back into his body, while Chu Yang's divine soul power was originally in his body. Return? Where could he return to? The two intentions were poles apart, poles apart. However, under such repeated torment, Chu Yang's spiritual power went from fighting on its own to passively forming an army. Then, it gradually gathered together. Later on, it became more and more united. It grew stronger and more condensed. Finally, it turned into an iron plate. And this iron plate was still growing bigger and bigger. It could be said that today was the foundation for Chu Yang to become the #1 person in the history of the Heavenly Imperial Court. This foundation was extremely solid, because he was using the same method to deal with the enemy's spirit to condense his spirit. From ancient times until now, there had never been anyone who dared to make such a huge move when they were still in the Shen grade, because that would definitely be suicidal. If he was not careful, his soul would be destroyed and he would be consigned to eternal damnation. Furthermore, when one was at the Shen grade, it was impossible to use the power of one's soul. However, Chu Yang was fine because there was a ruler inside at this moment. He only needed to follow it. Moreover, he could still use it. He had already used it once 3 days ago, and had even devoured one. It was very successful at that time. Such a situation, such a fortuitous encounter, was absolutely unprecedented in history. At this moment, the heavenly demon was on the brink of tears. Holy shit, big brother, I just want to leave, okay? Why do you have to risk your life like this? As the saying goes, a single man can't beat a single man. When you have to let go, you should let go. When you can spare others, you should spare them. The more friends you have, the more paths you have, the more enemies you have, the more walls you have. Let's hold hands and become good friends. He could clearly feel the power of his spirit dissipating bit by bit. His own spirit power was barely close to 2 pieces now, but it was still being beaten and cruelly ravaged by the enemy. As for the other piece of powerful spirit power, it had already been separated a little far away. The chances of getting it back were very slim. If he still forced himself to rush over to rescue, he probably wouldn't be able to come back. He would really die here today. The heavenly demon's eyes were full of tears. He looked at the spirit power that was surrounded with endless nostalgia. He roared desperately and the 2 spirits that were closer finally met. Chu Yang was very nervous. This guy finally made a new move. Is it going to be bad? Or I can't defeat him? Suddenly he gritted his teeth. Even if it's going to be bad, I will make you lose more than you gain. You want my life, I won't let you have a good time even if I risk my life. If it's going to die, the two of us brothers will die together. As this thought flashed through his mind, he pushed with all his might. Suddenly, the spirit power moved at an extremely fast speed, sweeping towards the spirit power that the heavenly demon had just gathered. This time, it was like 10,000 horses galloping, with the power to destroy heaven and earth. That heroic spirit of perishing together, that you won't have a good time even if I die, was expressed so blatantly and bloodily. My mother, this person is really too ruthless. The heavenly demon screamed. How could he still dare to fight back? He immediately fled outside in panic, like a stray dog, like a fish that had escaped the net. I'm always afraid of you. I've seen people who don't care about their lives, but I've never seen someone who doesn't care about his life like this, and is even shameless. I've already fucking admitted defeat, okay? Do you have to be so relentless? How could Chu Yang know that the other party would actually give up and admit defeat at this moment? He gritted his teeth and chased with all his might. His sea of consciousness was vast. Under the pursuit, his increasingly skilled spirit power actually intercepted some of the heavenly demon's spirit power in his own sea of consciousness. It must be said that Chu Yang's mastery of spirit power was still very immature. In such a good situation, he had the absolute upper hand, but he actually couldn't keep this uninvited guest of the heavenly demon eccentric. Instead, he left a little imperfect aftertaste for today's big comeback. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Black smoke suddenly came out of Chu Yang's forehead. The remnant spirit power of the heavenly demon finally rushed out from here without any care. My mother! It's finally out. I won't do this kind of suspenseful thing again in the future. The next moment, that black smoke floated into his sea of consciousness. Ow! Holy shit! Ow! Ah ah ah! A strange continuous scream came from the mouth of the heavenly demon eccentric. Even if one's spirit power was injured or even lost in a battle in another's sea of consciousness, one wouldn't feel any pain. But now that it had returned to its own body, it felt as if half of its body had been cut off. The spirit eye was injured, and it was the kind that was close to irreparable. At this moment, the heavenly demon's head was in so much pain that it felt as if it could explode at any time. For a moment, all kinds of grief came together, and a strong urge to commit suicide surged within it. Living was worse than death. Ouch, Nini Nini. A shriek so shrill that one couldn't even bear to listen to it rang out. No one knew what was being said or yelled anymore. The heavenly fiend weirdo turned into a wisp of black smoke and dashed out with a swoosh. He swiftly returned to where he came from and dashed into the underground cave. He grabbed the unconscious Dharma Supreme and screamed, howled, spasmed, contorted and cursed all the way. Then, he turned into a wisp of black smoke and left at an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, that wisp of black smoke had already left the forest and climbed up the mountain. Then, it disappeared at the top of the mountain. Only the earth-shaking screams kept coming, echoing in the forest. Ow, I've seen a ghost. Ow, I've seen a ghost. Ow, I've seen a ghost. And so, this voice echoed in the forest again and again, for a long time. Oh, I've seen a ghost. Oh, I've seen a ghost, I've really seen a ghost. High up in the sky, that old man was dumbfounded and almost fell from the sky. His eyes were as big as copper bells. Unconsciously, he blew his beard and muttered to himself, "What's going on? I've really seen a ghost." Shui Leihan's eyes were also full of shock. He had already tried his best to overestimate Chu Yang, and had already guessed that Chu Yang would make it through and gain a lot of benefits. But he didn't expect that the heavenly demon would be defeated so badly. This is a little unbelievable. The Prime Minister was dumbfounded. His lips and face were pale as he said, "Although this heavenly demon is only at the beginner level of the heaven level, and more than half of his strength was destroyed by me, his divine sense wasn't destroyed much by me." Shui Leihan was in a daze. He said casually, "So what? So what? Heavens! But this Chu Yang is only at the Xian level, and there's no way to cultivate divine sense in this heavenly continent. How could he destroy the divine sense of the heavenly demon?" The old man shouted, If this person in front of him wasn't Shui Leihan, his face would have been covered in his saliva. Lord, did you notice? When the heavenly demon retreated, it was obvious that his divine sense was greatly damaged, at least a quarter of it. This is really incomprehensible. Shui Leihan snorted and said, "You don't understand? If you don't understand, then that's right." Thinking of the two incredible mighty people he met back then, Shui Leihan felt a chill in his heart. He said, "Not just you, there are many things that I don't understand, too." The old man was dumbfounded. If he was drinking tea at this moment, he would definitely choke and have a cerebral hemorrhage. The emotions in Lord's words seemed to contain a lot of stories. Remember, don't tell anyone about what happened today. Keep it in your heart forever. Shui Leihan said calmly. Yes. The old man was stunned and stood up straight. Let's go. Shui Leihan looked at Chu Yang below and smiled bitterly. Let's go back. If this little guy knows that I was the one who facilitated the game between him and the heavenly demon, I don't know what kind of trouble he will cause. After saying that, he moved and floated away. The old man followed behind Shui Leihan with a crooked mouth and slanted eyes. His face was full of the expression of a zombie who was scared to death. He was already so shocked that he couldn't speak. According to Lord's words, he was actually very, very wary of this little ant named Chu Yang below. Could it be that this old man was dreaming? With a blank face, he followed Shui Leihan and slowly disappeared into the distance. The enemy had already retreated, but Chu Yang was still in pain, still fighting with the imaginary enemy in his sea of consciousness. I won't give up. How can I give up? No matter what, I won't give up. Chu Yang roared, even if it's just one thing. But in his sea of consciousness, these divine senses had already slowly formed into a scale and slowly started to have order. Like a motley crew of loose sand, they slowly started to be organized and slowly started to form a strong fighting force. And this fighting force would be different from anyone else. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.